Great job filling in.
And now the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on the lands of Anishinaabe Nation. This spot where we gather is the traditional land of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. We also recognize that this land is now home to the Delaware Nation. This land was settled through the McKee Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we as beneficiaries of the treaty must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. Mr. Mayor, we do not have a supplementary agenda this evening. Rules of decorum for the council meeting. The municipality of Chatham-Kent supports open meetings that welcome debate of public policy issues in an atmosphere of inclusiveness, integrity, civility, fairness, and respect of differing points of view. Anyone conducting themselves in a way that disturbs, disrupts, or impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting, interrupts or makes derogatory statements or hate speech, defamatory comments about councillors, staff, speakers, fellow members of the public may result in a removal from the premises. We ask that you do not approach members of council if they are seated in their seats. The use of posters, signage, and literature is also prohibited. Mr. Mayor, we have two conflicts of interest this evening. Planning item A with regards to 2759 Talbot Trail in Romney, Councillor Story, and also the planning item for 19699 Erio Road by Councillor Story. So now we will do the swearing in of Marina McDonald. Mayor, members of council, staff, and members of the public, it gives me great pleasure this evening to introduce Marina McDonald. Council, at its last meeting on May 13th, 2024, passed a motion to fill the vacant seat in Ward 3 by asking the candidate with the next highest number of votes in the 2022 municipal election, being Marina McDonald. Marina has accepted this appointment and will be sworn in now. Marina, please stand to take your declaration of office, and I will witness your oath once completed.
Okay. I, Marina McDonald, having been appointed to the office of Councillor Ward 3 in the municipality of Chatham-Kent, do solemnly promise and declare that 1. I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to be the best of my knowledge and ability. 2. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. And 4, I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III. And I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously believing it to be true and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath.
Right, so we'll get you to sign both copies. Congratulations, Marina, and welcome to Chatham-Kent Municipal Council for the term ending November 14th, 2026.
Well, Councillor McDonald, that's a great way to get started, a standing ovation in council chambers. It takes a while to get one of those. So I want to, on behalf of council and the citizens of Chatham-Kent, I'd like to welcome you to council as well. And we thought we'd throw you in the deep end with probably one of the tougher agendas we're going to have in the entire term. So welcome aboard. We'll get started with planning now.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. The process to be followed for each application during the planning meeting portion of this council meeting will be as follows. Number 1, the clerk will announce each individual planning item. 2, The mayor will ask if there is anyone present other than the applicant with an interest in the application and to indicate so by raising their hand. 3, the clerk will advise if written or video submissions have been received. 4, if someone present other than the applicant indicates an interest in the item, there will be a presentation by administration. 5, individuals with an interest in the application other than the applicant will be asked to proceed to the microphone at the back of the room, provide their name and address, and address council. 6, the applicant will be asked if they wish to proceed to the microphone at the back of the room and address council. 7, administration will be asked if they have any comments on any of the discussion that may have occurred. And 8, council will be asked what direction it wishes to take regarding the item. Notice, if any person or public body that files an appeal of a decision of council in respect of a proposed application does not make oral or written submissions to the municipality before the proposal is approved, they are not entitled to appeal a decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal, if otherwise eligible, unless in the opinion of the tribunal there are reasonable grounds to add the person or party to the appeal. Information on council's actions tonight will be posted on the municipal website. All persons who have made a request or who have made an oral or written submission regarding a particular item will receive a notice of council's decision. Any other person who wishes to receive a notice of council's decision must submit a written request to the municipal clerk. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
12A, application for consent and zoning bylaw amendment 1000042-787 Ontario Limited, 2759 Talbot Trail, Community of Romney, West Kent. We have a conflict of interest by Councillor Story, and no deputations were received.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant and or the agent with an interest in this application? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, Councillor Harrigan and Councillor Anderson, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved, Mayor Caniff, and happy to second.
Any questions? Seeing none, with these, I will just ask for anyone opposed to the motion. Seeing none, motion passes.
12B, application for consent and zoning bylaw amendment, Olive Mary Cross, 19699 Erio Road, Community of Harwich, South Kent. I have a conflict of interest by Councillor Story, and no deputations were received.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant and or the agent with an interest in the application? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, Councillor Doyle and Councillor Thompson, can I get you to move this, please?
Happy to move that. Happy to second.
Any questions? Seeing none, anyone opposed to the motion? Seeing none, motion approved.
12C, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Murray Malott, 97 Victoria Street, Community of Thamesville, East Kent. Council administration is requesting that this report be pulled, and if it returns to council, a new notice will be made. Moving on to 12D, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Tom Dalios, 861 and 863 Charing Cross Road, Community of Chatham City. I have no conflict of interest and no deputations were received.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant or the agent with an interest in the application? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, Councillor B. McGregor and Councillor Finn, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved.
So seconded.
Any questions? Seeing none, anyone opposed to the motion? Motion approved.
12E, application for zoning bylaw amendment 10001260008 Ontario Incorporated, 118 Sheldon Ave, Community of Chatham City. No conflict of interest and no deputations were received.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant?
Received an application to amend the municipal zoning bylaw. at a property in the northwest portion of Chatham, located at 118 Sheldon Avenue. This property is located just south of McNaughton Avenue West and north of Cornhill Street on the west side of the road. The property is currently zoned residential high density and is located within a residential area as designated in the Chatham-Kent official plan. The application proposes to add infill development to this property. The property currently contains a single detached dwelling with 2 additional dwelling units. The zoning bylaw amendment application specifically seeks to allow a new multiple dwelling to be constructed in the rear yard of the property, containing up to a maximum of 7 dwelling units. To implement the new building at this location, amendments are also proposed to set the northerly side yard setback at 1.2 meters or 4 feet, and set the southerly interior side yard setback at 2.4 meters or 8 feet. It is also proposed that a minimum driveway width of 3.6 meters or 12 feet for an entrance from Sheldon Avenue be proposed to connect the street to the proposed parking area. And lastly, that the minimum building setback from the front and rear yards of the property be set at 7.62 meters or 25 feet. This proposal has been reviewed in the context of the provincial policy statement, Chatham-Kent official plan, and zoning bylaw, and would be in compliance with these documents if approved. The proposal conforms to these policies in general, in that the property is located within an established residential area where community services are located within proximity. The property has access to full municipal services, including piped water, sanitary sewers, and storm sewers. Parking area containing 11 parking spaces is planned for the site. The parking area will be located between the existing single detached dwelling and the proposed building and accessed from Sheldon Avenue. In context, the parcels on either side of the subject property contain existing apartment buildings to the north and south, and then to the front and rear of the property are existing low-density single detached dwellings. Therefore, it is recommended that zoning bylaw amendment application file D14C1324O to rezone the lands known as 118 Sheldon Avenue to a site-specific high-density residential zone, to recognize the existing single detached dwelling, as well as permit a multiple dwelling, subject to the regulations noted in the planning report, be approved and the implementing bylaw be adopted. Thank you.
Okay, if you want to let us know your name, where you live, and then you've got up to 5 minutes.
Perfect. All right. Doug Dodman, 11529 Pinehurst Line, McKay's Corners. I just want to speak about this a little bit. Hopefully this is the right forum for it, but the nearest park to this property, 118 Sheldon Ave, is on Stewart Street, which is a parallel road to it. And then that's Lions Park. The adjacent apartment building to the northeast at 130 Sheldon Ave has direct access to that park via Diane Road. And I have a property on Diane Road. Currently, there's a lot of traffic from that apartment building that goes to the park. And so obviously the park is a good place to spend some time. So with that in mind, the subject property does not, has a section of unfenced section of boundary with our property. And so the concern is that we may see an increased amount of foot traffic then going through our property, because that could be used as a shortcut to get to that park. So the request is that if this development is being considered where this becomes a risk for damage and trespassing on our property, that a condition of this development could be that a fence be installed of 6 foot in height, which would match the existing fence on the adjacent property at 130 Sheldon Ave. And this would restrict the foot traffic through our property and alleviate the damage and trespassing concerns.
Is the applicant here? Would you like to say any words? Okay. Brian, do you have any other comments as well?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. A situation where council is considering a zoning bylaw amendment. This is not the type of application under the Planning Act that council can apply conditions to. However, administration would commit to follow up with the applicant prior to the redevelopment of the property if this application is approved, and encourage them to work with the neighboring landowner to address the points that the speaker noted. Thank you.
Councillor Bondi and Councillor Allen, can I get you to move this?
Maybe. So moved.
So seconded.
Any other questions? Seeing none, anyone opposed to this motion? Seeing none, motion passes.
And the last planning application is application for zoning bylaw amendment 1268236, Ontario Inc., 430 Indian Creek Road West, Community of Chatham. No conflict of interest and no deputations were received.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant and or the agent with an interest in the application? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, Councillor Story and Councillor Crew, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
Happy to move, Your Worship.
Second.
Any questions? Seeing none, anyone opposed to this? Seeing none, motion passes.
Just getting the deputations up.
We'll be moving on to deputations now, and they're coming up shortly.
Okay. I don't have them. So council, we have received 13 deputations this evening. 3 of them have been on the item for Dresden York 1, and they were emailed to all of you. One is with regards to the flag policy, that was also emailed to you. And then this evening, we are going to start with deputations on the floor. So I'll remind all the speakers you have a maximum of 5 minutes, and I will watch the timer, and we will call upon them now. The first one I will call upon is Liz Komanek. Is Liz here? Welcome, Liz.
Okay. I'm writing this deputation to express my objection to York One's proposal of expanding the landfill and building a recycling facility at 29831 Irish School Road, Dresden. As a member of the Dresden BIA and the Dresden Horticultural Society, we have worked hard to create and brand our town with the tagline, "The charm, the beauty, the lifestyle." Our goal has been to create a vibrant, welcoming, and caring community, honoring our heritage, always aiming to collaborate and work together. We've been successful in attracting new residents to our community and proud to have 2 new housing developments in town, and as well some new businesses who have recently opened. As a member of the Dresden Horticultural Society, we work to beautify the community and promote good environmental practices. The charm of our town is the quiet, friendly surroundings, the beauty of our parks and the Sydenham River, which flows through our town, and our lifestyle, where families feel safe raising their children and can enjoy sports and many cultural activities. Our beautiful river offers recreation and sanctuary for many endangered species. I have grave concerns that York One's proposal would destroy what we have worked so hard to build. Imagine 700 trucks coming through town, destroying the peaceful, quiet main streets, which would create pollution, safety hazards for everyone, especially our children attending 2 schools which are in close proximity to the proposed site. The leaching of waste from the toxic materials would harm the ecosystems in Molly's Creek and the Sydenham River. Many of those endangered species would likely become extinct. Another upsetting concern that we have with York 1 representatives is that they did not engage in any meaningful discussion with our community or Chatham-Kent when the property was first purchased to disclose their proposed plans. This lack of respect for our concerns is not a good way to initiate relationships, and I'm worried about any future goals for our town, which will probably not be honored or ignored. I ask that this Chatham-Kent Council continue to support us and work with our Dresden citizens against reckless environmental disposal. Please continue to object and not support York 1's proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Martha Furr, and on deck is Amanda Lackey.
Hello. Good evening, Mayor Darren Caniff, Chatham-Kent councilors, administration, news media, and everyone who came out tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all tonight about my profound concerns regarding York 1's landfill on the edge of my town. I'm a 21-year-old business owner, active community volunteer, and a proud resident of Dresden. You might recognize me from my food trailer, the Chipco, or from my numerous volunteer work with various service clubs across Chatham-Kent. However, my recent involvement has been with Dresden Cared, a non-profit organization dedicated to opposing this proposal by a large GTA-based company seeking to exploit outdated permits to establish a large-scale landfill facility. When news of this landfill proposal surfaced in February, I felt compelled to act. This was my opportunity to give back to a community that has supported me since my days of pouring coffee at the local Tim Hortons. I've created a website, launched social media campaigns, helped organize events, met with politicians, and spoken at public info sessions, all to inform and unite our community, as I believe at the very least, our community deserves transparency and to know the facts of the situation. I'd like to thank every single person here tonight for your transparency with myself and the Dresden community over the past couple months. That communication has given me the opportunity to personally vouch for this council, assuring a skeptical community that you have advocated for our community over the past couple months. I have put my hard-earned reputation on the line, believing in your commitment to our collective well-being. I have been harassed, threatened, and bullied for my advocacy on this issue, but I know through the countless hours I have spent these past couple months that though I am a young woman, my voice on this matters, which is why I am here today, because I know that this proposal is a danger to not only my future, but the future of my community. Vice President of York 1, when in Dresden, asked by community members if this company would be willing to undergo an environmental assessment of this site to ensure the community of its safety, refused, stating that the site was chosen because it meant that this company could circumvent current environmental standards that were implemented to safeguard ecosystems and communities. Just as one example, new landfill legislation mandates that any new landfill site should be at least 3.5 kilometers from a town line. This regulation exists because research shows that communities within this distance are negatively affected by landfill sites. From this proposed site on one end of town to my restaurant on the complete other end, we are under this distance. Our public schools are less than that. The landfill license for this site should be revoked as it now falls within an unsafe distance according to current standards. It also poses severe environmental risk. There's a very real potential risk of contamination to the local water sources, 2 of which, Molly's Creek and the Sydenham, run right by the site, dangerously close to the wastewater runoff and potential leachate leakage that could cause the destruction of their natural ecosystem. The Sydenham River runs directly through my backyard, a place where I spent many cherished moments of my childhood. The negative impacts on this could have on wildlife and the overall degradation of our natural environment are unacceptable. The proposed location is dangerously close to schools, areas, and businesses, and the health, safety, and quality of life of our community are at stake. The development of an urban waste facility in a small rural community has the potential for so much damage. I fear the loss of many things. Perhaps foremost and close to my heart is the impact that this could have on our farmers. Since my childhood, I've seen firsthand and worked with farmers and saw how they worked and the passion and tradition they uphold in our community. I'm scared for the loss of prime farmland that supports and upholds the history and future of this community and provides for others far beyond it. The location of this site, so close to fresh water sources, nourish our soil and ecosystem and pose unwarranted risks to the continual health of our soil and growth it supports. According to an OFA study, Ontario is losing 319 acres of farmland every single day. Our farmers are the backbone of our community, and they deserve our protection and support. They work tirelessly to feed our cities and preserve our rural way of life. Recently, I had the honor of meeting with Tom Kerr and his family, whose family was the first to plant soybeans in Canada, just up the road from this proposed site. Tom and his family have been actively working to protect this area for years, and with the help of the St. Clair Conservation Authority, he's planted 4,500 trees around the waterways, which this company is planning to discharge waterways into. He also published a paper 10 years ago titled Let Farmers Farm, which discussed this very issue, the GTA taking advantage of rural communities by trucking their garbage here. This fight is not new, it's just bigger than ever, and now it's in our community. I have a unique perspective on this issue as I've dedicated the majority of my time since the news of the landfill, and I've become known to communities, to the meetings, research, and advocacy, all while working a full-time job. I've had the privilege of standing with and for my community, and in that role, I've read through a substantial amount of the York 1 filings, and I must be honest, it's terrifying. This location is unfit and could cause irreversible harm to the ecosystem and all that it supports. In conclusion, I stand here today to protect my town and its future and my heart, my little niece and nephews who deserve to grow up in a community where the fish still swim in the river, airborne chemicals do not affect their health, and where driving past a field still means hearing my nephew shout excitedly at the sight of a tractor. I plead and urge all of you here today to continue in your support, and I thank you for your time and consideration over the past 4 months. I am eternally grateful to all of you.
Next speaker is Amanda Lackey. On deck is Angie Mills.
Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to address you today about the York 1 facility trying to establish itself on the edge of the Dresden community. I grew up in Dresden, and those were some of the best years of my life. Back then, we didn't have the electronic entertainment kids have today, so we spent most of our time outdoors fishing, swimming in the Sydenham, and building forts along the riverbank. Now, as an environmental professional, I've come to understand the vital role the Sydenham plays in supporting diverse ecosystems. The river is home to at least 34 mussel species and 80 fish species, and many being species at risk. The region also supports other semi-aquatic species at risk, including amphibians, turtles, and snakes. Some of these species are exclusive to Canada and found only a few global locations, making the Sydenham watershed a matter of global conservation concern. Mussels are particularly critical to the river's health. They act as natural filter feeders, improving water quality by removing bacteria, algae, and pollutants. Additionally, their presence or absence can indicate the overall health of an ecosystem. Furthermore, mussel shells provide habitats for insects and plants. The empty shells serve as nesting sites for small fish. These freshwater mussels are not just fascinating creatures, they are essential for maintaining healthy aquatic ecosystems. Protecting them is crucial for the well-being of our rivers and the species that rely on them. You can think of them as the kidneys to the waterways. Unfortunately, they are one of the most endangered group of organisms due to the negative impact of water pollution on their populations. The proposed landfill site's proximity to the river poses a great threat to the delicate ecosystem. Scientific evidence demonstrates leachate from landfills contains heavy metals and harmful contaminants, risking the health of the Sydenham River and its inhabitants. This could lead to algae blooms and endanger sensitive species. Moreover, these contaminants may seep into the drinking water or nearby residents through runoff drinking water of nearby residents through runoff and ground infiltration. Additionally, York 1's stormwater proposal to discharge into Molly's Creek raises serious concerns. The south and east portions of the York 1 site are located in a floodplain. The Sydenham River has a history of significant flooding events. It is uncommon in my experience to find landfills in such close proximity to both a town and a waterway. Most sites I have visited are situated at a considerable distance from communities and water bodies. Although I no longer reside in Dresden, I remain connected to many family and friends in the area. It is clear York 1's actions are unjust. As someone who regularly engages in due diligence in my line of work, it is evident that York 1 is neglecting its responsibility to the residents of Dresden. If York 1 genuinely valued the well-being of the people and the environment, they would take every measure to ensure their safety. Unfortunately, that has not been the case based on my observations thus far. I would like to thank you, Mayor Caniff, and the councillors for taking the time to hear our concerns.
Next speaker is Angie Mills, followed by Marie Carter.
Good evening, Angie Mills Richards. I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity to the mayor and the council and everyone else here. I'm very passionate with this. I have 8 grandchildren and great nieces and nephews all within this area. The property that's proposed butts right up to our land. We are also farmers. I am deeply concerned about the potential impact of the facility, their health and their safety, as well as our family, our entire family. Our family has been actively involved in farming in the Dresden area for over 75 years, cultivating a variety of crops, including tomatoes, beans, sugar beets, wheat, beans, corn. One of my concerns pertains to the significant increase of traffic. The York 1 facility could generate, the proposal indicates, influx of 700 trucks per day. That's in and 700 trucks out, which raises a serious concerns of our farmers, students, residents, particularly during the tomato season. Additionally, the discovery of methane gas pockets already in the ground, presence of well waters are already contaminated. This causes an alarm. Methane emissions and from emissions from leachings and are known to be a significant environment issue, and deeply troubled by the potential impact of both naturally occurring the landfill produced methane gas or our community in the environmental. Furthermore, I am troubled by the potential release of particular matter, silica dust, and acceptance of 500 tons a day of asbestos containing material of facilitary. Multiple studies have highlighted the heightened risk faced to individuals living in the close proximity of this landfill, including increased likelihood of cancer, respiratory illness, asthma, given this proximity of our high school, which is 0.5 kilometers away, our public school, Dresden Public School, Donny Female Public School, and other ones on the route. The health of the children should be our most priority, not compromise for the sake of cost savings measures of trying to avoid having assessments completed. As farmers, the quality of our crops directly impact the livelihood. The proximity of our farmland backs immediately right up onto Molly's Creek and runs into the Sydenham. The potential of the contamination of this dump being close to our crop, tomatoes being one of them, and harvest and feeding everyone, is high risk. Normally, we have wildlife coming in as it is. Now, moreover, potential increase of pest, rodents, wildlife drawn to the site. Outdoor poses a threat to the farming operation and for our children to be outside and ride their bikes and walk to school. Our Dresden processing plant and our 2 meat packers in the area are also going to be at risk. The potential repercussions of our family's livelihood sustainable are pleading and everyone to please help stop the facility for collect efforts to crucial preventing the unwanted neighborhood from becoming a reality. our family, our generations rely on you. Please consider us.
Thank you. Next speaker is Marie Carter, followed by Michelle Ross.
Hello, Mayor Caniff and Council and CK staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, and thank you especially for the support you've already shown in coming out to public meetings and various things at Dresden. Liz and Martha and a number of people have already covered a lot of the points that I would have liked to have said, but I really want to focus on the history of Dresden for you in my role as a historian for the town. The concern, I'm sorry. I wanted to highlight for you today the impact that the development by York 1 would have on Dresden's history, and especially on our ability to continue as a destination for educational groups and heritage tourism. The concerns for heritage has an economic component, as tourism is a multi-billion-dollar industry in our province, and heritage tourism represents the largest and fastest growing segment of the tourist industry today. At Dresden, you've only to walk down through our downtown business core to see that Dresden's businesses have tapped into the potential of our unique and rich heritage at Dresden. Not only business investments, but several years of hard work by our community volunteers and the work of historical researchers and educators have gone into developing Dresden to be the kind of place school bus tours and heritage tourists flock to. We have gone in the past 20 years from being a place that only had one historical site, which you all know is Uncle Tom's Cabin previously, and now the Josiah Henson Museum of African Canadian History. And now we have several complementary types of things that we have developed in the town through the citizens that are meant to augment and complement the Black history attraction that we have. For the past 20 years, Dresden's people have worked hard to create these extra heritage experiences through projects like the Trillium Trail Historical Walk, the Dawn Settlement Tour, building heritage guides, and the Into the Dawn Barn Quilt Trail. Beautification of our parks and gardens and the investment of business people in creation of amenities and services geared to tourist traffic has also resulted in the creation of 2 Airbnbs, 2 specialty bakeries, an ice cream parlor, a candy shop, an art gallery, and a variety of boutique shops. Special needs of cyclists, tourists, and kayakers have also been addressed with the addition of repair stations for cycles and rentals of equipment and a cabin on the river. The total effect has been increased visitor traffic that has resulted in revitalization of Dresden's business core. Not insignificantly, this increased activity has also opened up new opportunities for historical education and resulted in the attraction of new residents. As a historian, I know that Dresden history is especially rich and unique, and I believe that history in and of itself deserves to be protected and safeguarded, and its significance understood by residents and visitors alike. Encouraging heritage tourism has the important benefits of ensuring education for our young people and general population on the important themes of multiculturalism and civil rights found in Dresden's history. How important is Dresden history? Academics I interact with regularly understand its uniqueness. They write about it regularly in various academic journals, papers, and books because of our unique roots in the historic Dawn settlement. Dresden is not only about its Black history, significant as that is, but other unique aspects of our diverse history have drawn documentary filmmakers like Eric Philpott, who is creating his film Dresden 1957, a feature-length documentary highlighting Dresden's unique role in shaping health and safety legislation in Ontario. Other authors who have toured here have included CBC's Stuart McLean, who wrote about us in Welcome Home, Travels in Small Town Canada, and the Governor General Award winner Carolyn Smarts Frost, who wrote I've Got a Home in Gloryland, and more than a dozen others that I've met and personally toured around Dresden, and who I've had the pleasure of having tell me that it's not only the history here that brings them back for more research, it's also the general ambience of the town and the atmosphere that we've created. Dresden's historical importance is also recognized by our government, who have installed 1 national historic plaque, 4 provincial heritage plaques, and Chatham-Kent is about to install a new plaque on Jackson Park in the coming summer. Our rich industrial history can also be found on the Trillium Trail Historical Walk. A memorial plaque on the Sydenham also marks the Dresden Cave-In disaster, a provincially important location. And we have a Japanese-Canadian Association that has created a storyboard on the Dresden Fairgrounds featuring our history of the Japanese work camps of World War II. So you can see the diversity that exists here, the number of people that we have the potential to attract and are attracting. The bottom line is Dresden is an important heritage community, and the significance of its history draws a wide range of people with many interests, from canoeists and cyclists to nationally recognized academics to elementary and secondary school students and to
That's time,
casual
Ms. Carter.
tourists.
Thank you for that. Council did receive the full deputation, though. Thank you. Next speaker is Michelle Ross. On deck is Mike Yankovic.
My name's Michelle Ross. I am a longtime resident of Dresden. I've lived there over 30 years, and I'm deeply concerned with the fact that York One intends to build a mega dump a kilometer from our small town. A lot of the things I'm going to say have already been said, so I'll say them quickly. New laws state that 3.5 kilometers is the required distance. The ministry also states that anything under 3 kilometers can cause adverse effects. Our entire town will be within a 3-kilometer radius of this dump. I'm concerned about asbestosis, silicosis, asthma, breathing issues, odors, fine particles floating throughout our town, cancer, etc. Our roads are also not built for this type of traffic. They're already in rough shape. Our children are bused on these roads, so I fear for the safety of the children on these roads with the added traffic. Farm equipment frequents our community, and during harvest and planting season, it can be chaotic already. Add in 700 vehicles each way every day, and it's going to be crazy. I'm concerned with the ecosystem. There are endangered species in our Sydenham. There's a marsh, naturally fed spring, creek, and the aquifers beneath the property. The waterbed's also shallow, the waterbed is not far down, so it's not fit for a landfill to be on top of it. I'm concerned that the property is located in a floodplain, and what happens if we get a 100-year storm and the leachate gets into the waterways due to flooding? The property also has 2 schools within a 1-kilometer distance. Great concern for the children's health. ConAgra's there, and it seems irresponsible, to say the least, to produce food within a kilometer or so of a landfill. Noise pollution is a huge concern. Being so close to the town, we're definitely going to hear all the trucks coming and going, as well as the equipment working. And also, as mentioned before, the Josiah Henson Museum of African Canadian History is located here. Dresden is rich with history and recognized locally, provincially, and nationally as an important historic site. There's a possibility that this site could also hold archaeological evidence of First Nations people. There's ongoing research regarding this area. And this is a new dump. Bill 197 needs to be applied. We're not willing hosts. Thank you for your time. I truly appreciate you listening.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mike Yankovic. On deck is Robert Simpson.
See if I can adjust this for my abnormal height here. All right. Good evening, Council, Mayor. You know, these deputations are always a nerve-wracking affair, so you'll have to forgive me if my voice cracks like a teenager's here, but I'm going to give it my best. I've been a lifelong resident of Dresden. I'm 41 years old, and I got 2 kids I'm raising here, 2 happy, bouncing, bubbly, busy little girls. When you're young and you're living in Dresden, you can't help but always think of where else you want to live. But as you get older and you have kids, Dresden is somewhere that there's nowhere else I'd rather be. I'm proud of my town. And it's pretty evident if you go through Dresden how proud everyone else is of our town. As Liz mentioned about the Horticultural Society, I mean, they're planting something beautiful in any green space that they can get their hands on, and it shows in Dresden. the Dresden Shines community, or the Dresden Shine Committee, makes Dresden honestly feel like Christmas Town. My kids just enjoy going for walks up and down the main street, just taking it all in. And then we have the Night Market Committee. They've done an amazing job of drawing people from outside the community into our town so the Dresden BIA can show off their businesses and how hard they've worked to make them attractive to everybody and show off the hard work they've done to be proud of Dresden. You know, with that pride, there's one thing I ask, is don't let York One steamroll our community by putting that dump right beside our town. Well, I've been talking to York One representatives. I must say that their ethical and moral positions are dubious, to say the least. They are misinformed, unfortunately, and are dishonest, to say the least. The residents in Dresden have no confidence in their integrity. But I will say who the residents of Dresden have integrity with. They have it with Mayor Kniff. When he wrote that letter, a very impassioned and excellently written letter, fully supporting Dresden. Thank you, Mayor. They also believe in the integrity of, now forgive me the title, is it is it CAO, Michael Dubin? Also have confidence in the integrity of Michael Dubin. When he wrote those two over 20-page letters to the Ministry of the Environment, Mr. Dubin, you knocked it out of the park. Thank you very much for those.
I have to say that letters are written for us and we sign them, but I appreciate the I appreciate the sentiment. So
it's just like when I clean up something in the house.
Staff over there. So.
It's just like when I clean up something in the house, the wife. I'll take all the credit I can get. So we also have confidence in the integrity of our council. When you guys did that unanimous vote of not supporting and objecting to the York One project. I follow council here and there, and I must say, like, I don't know, it seems like a rare event, and that was something that really piqued everybody's interest, and it became very clear to the naysayers and the conspiracy theorists where Chatham-Kent Council stood when it came to supporting Dresden. We also have confidence in our councillors. Former councillor Steve Pinsino, Jamie McGrail, Rhonda Jubenville have been linking arms with the residents of Dresden and Dresden Cared, our nonprofit organization, keeping in communication and keeping lockstep in this fight against this dump. So thank you to those councillors as well. In my opinion, in my personal opinion, I think you all have done a fantastic job representing Dresden. And we all really can't thank you enough. Thanks to you, it's in my opinion that we'll get York One on the ropes. And if not, the residents of Dresden and Dresden Cared are going to keep punching. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker is Robert Simpson. On deck is the final speaker, Wendy Vercauteren.
Good height, by the way. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing us to speak tonight. Now, my name's Robert Simpson. My wife Debbie and I are both proud Wallaceburg residents and proud members of Dresden Cared in this fight. My wife and I live in Wallaceburg on the Sydenham. Our property is flooded several times during high water events in the many years past. I wish to speak about York One's proposed dump landfill in Dresden. I strongly disagree with this project being allowed to move forward. I wish to state this dump must be shut down now. First off, the land it would be on is bordered by both the 4th Concession Drain and Molly's Creek, which I wish to point out are both environmentally sensitive waters which drain into the Sydenham, which is an at-risk river. Both Molly's Creek and the fourth concession drain are breeding grounds for soft-shell, spiny turtle, and gar. Both are at risk. With York 1's proposed dump landfill, their stormwater ponds, their washing of contaminated soil, all which will be running off into these two streams, thus wiping out their habitat and many other at-risk species. This contaminated water would then run into the Sydenham River, again, an at-risk river. This water from the soil washing and storm runoff as it goes downstream towards Tupperville, Wallaceburg, then to Walpole Island into Lake St. Clair would affect over 80 at-risk species. As well as the loss of these species, it would affect the fisheries and waterfowl along the Sydenham, Lake St. Clair. They would be affected, thus ruining the fisheries and the fall hunts of Walpole Island, Mitchell's Bay, and the surrounding communities, which would be causing a loss of their source of income. Also, eagles and other birds of prey which eat fish and wildlife would be impacted greatly. I ask Chatham-Kent Council to use every means they can to urge the province of Ontario to shut this dump landfill down and save Molly's Creek, save the forest concession drain, and to save the Sydenham River, including all the waterways along the way. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last deputation this evening is from Wendy Vercaudron.
You think this would be easy considering the fact that I've done 3 information sessions. Good evening, Mayor Darren, Chatham-Kent councillors, Chatham-Kent administration, news media, and everyone here in attendance tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to all of you tonight about my concerns about York 1's landfill proposal on the northern edge of Dresden. Myself and my husband Jeff have called the north side of Dresden our home for 34 years. We've raised our 3 adult sons in our town. I work in Dresden, and Jeff operates a business in town as well. We do everything we can to support the small business community, as well as volunteering with various organizations and causes over the years in and around Dresden. Most recently, since February 2024, we've been actively involved within the town with the campaign to stop York 1's agenda to erect a landfill a short distance north of Dresden town limit. As a member of Dresden Cared, we have been dedicated to gather the facts about the property that York 1 purchased, as well as reviewing and analyzing pertinent documents regarding York 1's plans for the proposed landfill at 29831 Irish School Road. As we are all aware, York 1 has submitted environmental registries to the province in an effort to have the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks amend the environmental compliance approvals, that are also known short form ECA, which is much easier to say, that are associated with the property that they purchased. York 1 has repeatedly referred to the property as a dormant landfill. However, as we are all aware and have been made aware, the property is currently zoned as M2 365 extractive industrial. Now let's talk about Dresden. The town is a beautiful town, a diverse town, a historical town, and a heritage town. It is home to the ever popular and very successful night markets, one in late July and one in late November. The downtown business core is almost full with flourishing businesses. Not too many years ago, while strolling through the downtown core, you would find yourself walking past many empty storefronts. Now, every window has an operating business in the stretch of connected buildings from Queen Street to the Main and Brown Streets intersections. And it doesn't end there. Around the corners onto Main and Brown Streets, the storefronts are filling up. Seeing all this brings so much pride to this quaint little town, which also has been dubbed as Southwestern Ontario's Christmas town. Then add in all the other activities and groups. Some of them we've already talked about. We have minor soccer and baseball. We have lawn bowling, hockey, figure skating, Girl Guides and Pathfinders, just to name a few. Then we have the Dresden Kinsmen, the Dresden Rotary, Catherine McPhee, IODE, Dresden Agricultural Society, Dresden Horticulture Society, Dresden Shines, to name a few more. And all of these groups do so much in and for the town of Dresden. If we lose this fight against York One's proposed landfill, we risk to lose all that this town has gained through the years. But I feel that the loss will have far more reaching consequences. You see, back in February when I learned of York One's landfill proposal, I did some research on landfill sites in the province of Ontario because I was looking for the EC numbers that York One acquired with the property at 29831 Irish School Road, but I could not find them anywhere on the landfill listing. But what I did discover was that there are 805 landfill sites in the province. I looked further for Chatham-Kent locations, and in Chatham-Kent there is one landfill that is currently open, and there are 13 that are closed. And those closed sites are the ones that have ECA numbers that are classified as landfills. The ECA numbers that York One acquired with the Irish School property are not listed anywhere on that landfill listing. Why is that? Is it perhaps because it was never deemed as a landfill, according to the province? The ECA numbers and the property predated any requirement of an environmental assessment as quoted by the Minister Kanjan on March the 15th. So how many other sites that are not listed on the landfill listing that anyone can access and download on the website with ECA numbers that may have been alleged to be landfills? Great question. So how many others in the province that are closed that any other company like York One could come along and try and buy and try and do the same thing? We need to all work together to halt York One's proposal in Dresden, and being here tonight talking about this, working as a team. Team is an acronym. Together, everyone achieves more. So let's do this and succeed to suppress any possibility of York One bringing a landfill to Dresden. And last but certainly not least, I cannot thank each and every one of you here tonight for your ongoing support in this fight. Showing up and speaking up means more than you could ever know. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we'll now move on to the consent agenda. The following items have been pulled. Item 17A, summary of submissions to the Environmental Registry of Ontario regarding York One Environmental Waste Solutions Limited, pulled by Councillor McGrail, and there will be a presentation by staff. Item 18A, the council flag and bridge lighting policies. It has been pulled by Councillor Hall, Councillor C. McGregor, Councillor Crew, Councillor Bondi, and Councillor Jubenville. Oops, sorry. Item 18B, urban backyard chicken options, has been pulled by Councillor Sakachi, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Brock McGregor, and Councillor Jubenville. Item 18D has been pulled by the clerk. Item 19A, Ride CK former route S1 beach bus, has been pulled by Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Doyle. And finally, item 19B, the update on linear infrastructure capital construction projects for 2024, has been pulled by Councillor Story. Therefore, the remaining items will be approved in one motion on the consent agenda. Items 15A, 16A, B, C, and D. Items 17B, C, D, E, F. Item 18C. And 19A can be removed from that motion on the screen. Thank you.
Councillor C. McGregor and Councillor Jubenville, can I get you to move the consent agenda, please?
Happy to move. I
Sorry,
so second.
Just one moment. Judy, do we pull my information report? Do I pull that now or is that after?
That's under the communication package, so not necessary for the consent agenda.
Any questions? Seeing none, anyone opposed to the consent agenda? Seeing none, that passes. Just want to let everybody know as well that I will be, given the agenda tonight, I will be enforcing the 5-minute rule fairly strictly tonight. Just if everyone can keep their comments confined to the 5 minutes, that'd be much appreciated. With that, we'll go on to item 17, development services.
17A, summary of submission to the Environmental Registry of Ontario regarding York One Environmental Waste Solutions Limited, proposed landfill and water transfer and processing facility at 29831 Irish School Road, Municipality of Chatham-Kent. Mr. Mayor, we have a presentation this evening by Bruce McAllister, the General Managers of Development Services.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff, members of council, half of Dresden by looks like, to the left here. Given this is an information report, first of all, my name is Bruce McAllister. I'm the General Manager of Development Services here at the municipality. Even though this is an information report, we thought we'd take a few minutes just to kind of give a quick summary of what's in the report, and specifically a quick summary of the environmental registry submissions, the three that the municipality has submitted to the province on the York One proposal. And then I thought I would just talk a little bit about, we keep hearing the term environmental assessment, exactly what is a full individual environmental assessment, and what are the steps involved in that process. So, as previously directed by council back in February, 3 submissions to the province have now been completed by the municipality. The first was back on March 15th, and that was the preliminary comments on the initial, I'm going to short form this, environmental compliance ECA application that York submitted that we received notice from regarding the waste processing component of this proposal. The second submission on April 9th, preliminary comments on the second ECA application regarding the proposed landfill were submitted. And then finally, a couple weeks ago, on May 9th, we submitted comments on the final notice of regulation proposal, which was directly from the Minister of the MECP, regarding a proposal to pass a regulation to potentially designate the York One proposal for a comprehensive environmental assessment under the Environmental Assessment Act. So those are the 3 submissions. They are all contained in the report, and they were all posted on our website and with media releases. I'm sure most of you have seen them. Fairly lengthy, as we heard before, but very technical in detail. I'm not going to go into describing what's in all those from a technical standpoint, but I did want to highlight in each submission, it is reiterated that the municipality is opposed in principle to this proposal, and it includes a copy of the February 29th letter from Mayor Caniff that was directed to the minister directly, that communicates this position on the matter. Furthermore, each submission includes a section outlining the rationale for requiring a full environmental assessment be completed pursuant to the requirements of the Environmental Assessment Act. And I think one key point or conclusion in the final letter that I would just like to highlight for the community, again, is the municipality has requested the description in the provincial proposal that was proposed be modified to remove the reference to reestablishing landfill operations and the reference to reestablishment and expansion of a waste transfer and processing station at the approved site. The reason for this is that we feel that this reference to previous landfill and waste processing approval is both unnecessary and misleading. This wording leaves the impression that the York One landfill and waste processing facility are similar in scope and nature to previous uses at the subject site and are simply a continuation and expansion of an existing use. This is not the case in our opinion. The previous landfill proposal, if anything, was a small facility approved decades ago with little to no environmental studies at the time. Both the York One landfill and waste processing facility are fundamentally different in nature to the small local facilities that previously received approvals many decades ago. The previous small-scale landfill and waste processing activities have been discontinued and the site is inactive and has never been used as a waste transfer station. So I'll just talk about a minute what is a full individual comprehensive environmental assessment. So The nature and scale of a proposal such as this does give rise to the need for a multidisciplinary set of studies to assess the potential environmental impacts of this proposal. Based on a broad definition of the environment under the Environmental Assessment Act, it includes impacts to air, land, and water, plant and animal life, including human life, social, economic, and cultural conditions of the community, and most importantly, this is a key point, the combined and cumulative impacts on the interrelationship between those components in the rest of the environment as well. So all things considered in totality. Specifically under the Environmental Assessment Act, studies are required generally in the disciplines of hydrogeology, groundwater movement, noise, air quality, including odor and dust, traffic and transportation planning, natural heritage, such as the aquatic and terrestrial environment, visual impacts, cultural heritage, socioeconomic impacts, human health risks, and land use planning. But additional studies could also be necessary as defined through terms of reference. So with that, I'll talk about the steps in the environmental assessment process. So there's 8 steps outlined if you go on the ministry website of what's required in an environmental assessment process. The very initial step, and I would say the most important step, is developing a terms of reference. So this serves as a framework for the preparation and review of an environmental assessment and outlines how a proponent will develop and evaluate alternative methods of implementing the proposal. So the proponent, in this case being York 1, must initially submit what they call a notice of commencement in a terms of reference summary form to the Ministry of Environment, Culture and Parks. Through this process, they must consult with the public, Indigenous communities, and other government agencies, and document the consultation process and submit that to the MECP with the terms of reference as well. And then outline the plan for preparing and evaluating the environmental assessment. The terms of reference itself obviously must include the name and address of the proponent, how the environmental assessment will be prepared, purpose of the study or the undertaking as they describe it, description of and rationale for the undertaking and for alternative approaches, description of the existing environment, i.e. what exists today, and potential effects of the project, assessment and evaluation framework, what are the company's commitments and monitoring going to be over the long term, and a consultation plan for the environmental assessment study process must be outlined as well. And then it must also outline ways that they'll be flexible to accommodate new circumstances that may arise, and also outline other approvals that will be required through the process as well. The ministry's role in the review of the terms of reference is to consult with the public, Indigenous communities, and other government agencies. They do coordinate a technical review of the terms of reference document, and then they will make a recommendation to the minister who decides whether or not to approve the terms of reference within 12 weeks from the date of the submission to the ministry. The proponent can take the opportunity to call with a timeout to amend the terms of reference. So there's no real prescribed timeline for doing a terms of reference, but you can get an idea of the ministry's approval time at the end once they receive it. But generally, I would suggest the terms of reference can take well over a year itself to determine. And to a number of the points that were brought out in the deputations tonight, the specifics of what would be studied are generally defined through the terms of reference up front. And consultation needs to occur with the community, the municipality, Indigenous communities up front to determine what components will be in the environmental assessment study. So the second step is to actually prepare the environmental assessment. Again, that starts once the ministry has approved a formal terms of reference. They must submit a notice of commencement to the ministry and then prepare the actual environmental assessment document. From there, it generally includes a complete record of the consultation that's occurred through the process, a monitoring framework that will be carried out if the undertaking is approved, a list of commitments by the proponent, actions to prevent, reduce, and manage environmental effects, obviously, a review and evaluation of the alternatives considered. Okay, what else was considered as an alternative to this proposal? Results of the planning and decision-making process, and the purpose of the project and a description of the undertaking. Through that whole environmental assessment process, again, there must be consultation with the public, Indigenous communities, and various government agencies. There are no limits on how much time a proponent can take to prepare an environmental assessment document, but obviously going through all those necessary studies is going to take some time. This third step then is to actually submit an environmental assessment. Essentially, the proponent, once all that's done, must submit the EA document to the ministry for review and decision by the ministry. Step 4, public and government review. So the ministry coordinates public and government review of the document that was submitted, the environmental assessment. By doing so, they consult with government experts. It could be technical experts within the ministry itself, could be within the municipality, or other member ministries within the province, Indigenous communities, obviously the public again, and any other interested party that may have come forward during the environmental assessment process. The public then has 7 weeks to comment. Again, this would be posted like these postings you've seen here in the last few months. Anytime during that process, the proponent or any other interested party can ask for what's formally called mediation of the province. I won't get into all that right now, but there's another step in the process. So the next step after that, step 5, is the actual ministry review period. So that includes a review of all the public, Indigenous community, and government agency comments. The proponent's response to those comments, they are obligated to respond to any comments received in a certain time frame. In a discussion whether the proponent is in compliance with their original approved terms of reference. So they go back to that original document to see that they've met all the requirements that were outlined in the terms of reference. The ministry then has 5 weeks to write and publish the ministry review. After that, step 6, public consultation on that ministry review. So the public, government agencies, Indigenous communities again, or any other interested party has 5 weeks to provide comments to the ministry at that point in time. During this time, anyone, including the proponent, can provide written comments to the ministry to identify any outstanding issues with suggestions on how they might be resolved, or request a hearing. Step 5, the minister's decision now. The EA must be approved by the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks and Cabinet before the project can proceed. Once public comment is finished on the ministry review, the minister has 13 weeks to make a decision. The minister may refer it to further mediation, refer it to what they refer to as Environmental Review Tribunal for a hearing, make a decision to approve with conditions, or refuse the proposal altogether. Step 8, implement the project and monitor compliance, assuming it wasn't refused by the minister. After the project has been approved, the proponent will need to gather other approvals as needed. So this could be other approvals under Environmental Protection Act. Generally speaking, just because you have an environmental assessment approval, you still may require ECA approvals for specific operational requirements at the landfill. Planning Act approvals, in our letters we've acknowledged they will require Planning Act approvals of the municipality, for instance. There could be requirements under the Species at Risk Act for further additional approvals as well. Those are some examples. So at that point, when the proponent has received all these approvals, construction can begin. But the proponent must report on how they've complied with the commitments they've made in their environmental assessment and the conditions of any other approval they received. And I'll leave you with, earlier today, we did, through the mayor's office, did receive a letter from the minister directly acknowledging receipt of our third submission to the final posting. And then it says that I want to assure you that we will consider all the components, all the comments that we have received before making any decisions about designating the project. However, there is no specific timeline for when a decision will be provided by the ministry. That concludes my presentation, Your Worship.
Councillor McGrail.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Caniff. There are just a couple things I'd like to say real quick. First off, I want to say thank you to my fellow councillors and Mayor Caniff. Without you, every one of you, we wouldn't be here today with your full support. So thank you wholeheartedly and believing in Ward 4. So thank you in that. To the community of Dresden, I'm with you and always will be. And we're just starting, so I'm going to be with you through the end. So I'm here. And the Dresden Cared Group, great group to work with and move forward with, and I'll be there with you too. Thank you. Thank you. So I guess, Bruce, you did kind of answer my first question. It was after the latest submission, the May 9th submission. There is no timeline on when they, their next action as in the ministry. They don't have to give us a timeline, or they're just no thoughts on that?
Correct. We've not been giving any timeline. It is a decision of cabinet at the end of the day. So it's really a matter of how long ministry staff will, I know there was hundreds of comments received. They were obligated to review all those comments and summarize them, so how long that will take. If anybody's watching, I know the House sits again tomorrow, but only till the 13th of June, and then they break for summer. So all that said, they can pull cabinet together at any point in time if necessary, but it's hard to say. So I wouldn't want to speculate any further. There's no timeline, no.
Okay, thank you. You just walked through the steps, the 8 steps of the environmental assessment process. I understand this is a guesstimate, I'm going to say, but how long could that process take?
Well, the last one went through in the community, it took 5 years from the start of the notice of the terms of reference through to environmental assessment approval.
Okay, thank you. And that would be the approval, but then there's the next steps of maybe other compliances and approvals through that too.
Correct, potentially.
After that. Okay, thank you. What are Chatham-Kent's next steps in the fight for Dresden? What do we have coming up? What are we planning? What are we trying to line up?
I'll start with that, but I think next steps, we need to understand, fundamentally, I think we need to wait to see what the decision of the minister and cabinet is, and then decide how we would react from that point in time. Yeah, we do have a proposed AMO delegation as well, depending on the circumstances. That's not till third week of August at this point, but we have prepared an AMO delegation as well. AMO, for the folks, is the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. It's an annual conference where there's often opportunities for municipal staff and council members to meet with various ministry officials and staff members as well, and to actually request delegations to speak on specific issues. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. I'm attending AMO this year, and I will be in that room. So I'm looking forward to that. So my last little comment is that this is Dresden's fight and Chatham-Kent's fight for now. We need to continue to work together for Dresden and also the next small town. So I think this is a good time for Chatham-Kent to take up Dresden's fight, but small rural Ontario fight, because I'm pretty sure we're not the only ones that are going to have these issues coming forward. So hopefully we can fight for that Bill 197 going forward, but that is in my mind too. So, and I got that little thought from the Dresden Cared Group, and thank you for that. And thank you.
Councillor B. McGregor, followed by Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Certainly appreciate the deputations this evening, and Councillor McGregor said it very well that this is definitely Chatham-Kent's fight, and I think it was astutely pointed out by Mike in his deputation that this is one of the few things that we agree on unanimously, and I anticipate we'll find that out tonight as well. I did have a few questions. I know this is a complex process. I know that as a municipality we're pulling every lever we can to stop this project, and it's very clear to me we're not a willing community. It's unfortunate that we don't have the authority under Bill 197 to veto this project. I'm sure if we did, we would. So I guess my question is really simple, is just who can stop this project? What level of decision maker is it? Could they make that decision tomorrow?
Right now, it's a provincial decision because right now it's not designated as a new landfill.
That's
So-
right. Yeah, and I think that's an important message, and I think that, you know, we're here to hear your message and hear how important this is to object from the community of Chatham-Kent, from Dresden, and I think it's really important that the province is hearing that message and that ultimately that's a decision they can make and a responsible decision that they should make. And I know they say they're taking their time to go through that feedback, but I think the feedback's going to be pretty unanimous, and I don't think it should take much time to make that decision. Thank you.
Councillor Story, followed by Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to thank everyone who spoke tonight. Very heartfelt words, and certainly means a lot to hear from everyone. So thank you for taking the time. I wanted to ask you, Bruce, does the municipality have any zoning approvals that we can provide here, or will there be any municipal zoning approvals required throughout this process? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So in every submission, there was an acknowledgement of the land use approvals that will be required to York. We wrote to them directly, what was the date, on March 15th, acknowledging this in writing to them. In short, we don't agree with their interpretation that this is what's referred to as a legal non-conforming use, and that at minimum a zoning amendment will be required and potentially what we refer to as official plan amendments. But in fairness, we've never seen a proposal to give them that direction yet, other than it's going to require zoning approvals.
So technically, could that be an opportunity for this council to turn down this project if and when that zoning approval comes to the council table?
So council is the decision-making body on Planning Act approvals, as you well know. We heard a bunch here earlier tonight. That said, usually how the process works is the planning approvals are generally supported through the work of an environmental assessment. For council to make an informed decision, you'll want to know all the things I just listed. And at the end of the day, you know, if it does make some sort of, you know, planning sense, then you'd have the basis of the environmental assessment. That said, council would hold the right to potentially refuse a planning approval. But it's important to note that the proponent does have the right to appeal that decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So it should be based on sound planning evidence at the end of the day. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for clearing that up. Does the province have the ability to appeal our decision? As does you mentioned the proponent can appeal our, if it came to that, does the province have that same ability?
The province, yes, through the ministry could appeal. They could direct the Ministry of Municipal Affairs to appeal the planning approval.
Thank you.
Councillor Anderson, followed by Councillor Jubenville.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to echo what's been said by other councillors that to thank everybody that spoke tonight. And I think this situation, while there's others that are very ward specific, this is one that is Chatham-Kent specific, and it's an easy decision to support your ward, and it's not even a question of borders. There's no borders in this situation. We vote together, and I stand with all of you in this, and I will continue to do that.
Councillor Jubenville, followed by Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank everyone from Dresden for their deputations and their heartfelt sentiments. I know it wasn't easy for some of you to stand there in the middle with nothing around you, so I can appreciate how difficult it was to share your heartfelt feelings and how you feel there's a potential of a big corporation coming in and robbing you of your city. So I will echo everyone else on this council's, the sentiments that we are with you, and we will stand with you right till the bitter end. I've been asked by a couple people how the verbiage that was used, that we are opposed to the York 1 proposal in principle. So a few people have asked me why that verbiage was used, and can we, for lack of better words, can we upgrade the word in principle to absolute, that we are absolutely opposed to the York 1 proposal? That's my first question.
I'm going to let Dave Taylor, our Director of Legal Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. So that was wording that was actually recommended by an environmental lawyer that we retained. So, we can certainly take that question back, Councillor. I don't have an answer for you immediately today. It was language that he recommended based on kind of his experience in the area over the past 30 years. We made sure to really get the best person we could find. And so certainly understand, there's always arguments or debates over what's the best language to use. We do think that through those 3 different submissions, through that letter that the mayor wrote, with advice from these experts, the message has absolutely been conveyed to the province about council's opposition.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Another question that I have been asked, if York 1, and I think the ship has sailed, but maybe it's just good that we have public confirmation. If York 1 at this point were to come with us with some kind of financial community engagement agreement, is that something that we think could happen right now? And if it were to happen, how would it be handled?
Thank you. So we've had no indication that that is the case at this point. We've had no discussions with York 1. And generally how that is best handled is part of commitments through an environmental assessment process. Just to go ahead and do a financial package without the bigger picture and understanding what all the environmental impacts are is not generally how it's done. So,
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just wanted to echo everyone else's comments. Thank you again to all the Dresden residents who've come out tonight. It was great to hear your deputations. I also want to echo what Councillor Anderson said about this issue not having any borders. There are no borders when it comes to the environment, and so it's really great to see your passion and concern for the community and the environment. Thank you.
Councillor Bondi.
You almost got lucky. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just very quickly, I was out to rewrite a couple weeks ago, and I just like to say I really like your signs. When you drive through Dresden, it's pretty clear that you're a pretty unified force. Because the signs are everywhere, so the message is pretty clear. And congratulations, I went to, I don't know, I think it was the first public engagement at the Ken Houston Center when the company was there, which was sort of a fiasco because it was a walkthrough. They didn't really have to address anybody, in my opinion. But again, I hate saying, oh, I'm going to echo everybody, but I've been here a long time, and I think this is probably the one and only issue that you have all of council. Nobody's looking at what ward we're in. It's an assault on your town to think this is a kilometer away. Is really a sin. It's almost unbelievable, to be honest, to think that, schools and basically society is half a kilometer away from a massive dump. It seems like a no-brainer to the province, but Torontonians can be a little funny, right? So if we stick at it, hopefully, I wish you all the success, and thanks again for coming out.
I just want to add one little thing. I'm not going to repeat everything everybody said. I agree totally with everything, all the deputations. But I just want to reiterate one little thing that that was said in the presentation. There was hundreds of people put their comments in, hundreds. So that's what I love to hear, and that's what we emphasized, and people stepped up in Chatham-Kent and made those comments, because that's going to make a difference. When the minister looks and has a pile this high on their desk looking through, and they're going to say virtually everyone is against it. So I'm excited to see that, and that's something we're going to keep fighting, as we talked about, going through until we ultimately, they will not be going through at the dump. So thank you. We'll move on to item 18, corporate services.
18A, council flag and bridge lighting policies.
Councillor Crew and Councillor Hall, can I get you to move this, please?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I move that the Chatham-Kent flag policy be approved with the following amendments. That the amended policy will remove in its entirety the concept of a community flagpole, and community flags will continue to be flown on the current flagpoles across Chatham-Kent in adherence with the amended policy, and that the Chatham-Kent bridge lighting policy, display policy be approved. I move that.
I'll second that, Mayor Caniff.
Okay, Councillor Crew, the floor is yours.
I'll reserve any comments to the end if there's any. I think
Okay.
we've spoke on this a lot.
Okay, Councillor Hall, followed by Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you very much, Mayor Caniff, and thanks to Councillor Crew for her motion. As it stated in the report in April of last year, Council approved a motion for administration to develop a flag policy, and now we have the flag policy in front of us. Another motion at that same meeting last April was defeated by Council. The motion asked that the only flags to be flown at the Civic Center and other municipal centers be the federal, provincial, and municipal flags. This motion failed 5-12. When looking at this outcome and decision by Council, I feel we have decided by a majority that we support flying other flags on our municipal flagpoles. So with that being said, I fully support Councillor Crew's amended motion to remove the community flagpole concept altogether. I think the raising of community flags is a process that has worked throughout the history of Chatham-Kent. It is a way to celebrate with different groups in all of our communities, whether it be veterans at our legions or our friends with community living and others. It isn't a process that is broken. I believe the essence of Councillor Crew's initial motion last year was really to enhance, reinforce, and solidify the process we already have in place that has worked in the past and continues to work today. Also, I just want to say hats off to administration for their detailed and diligent work on this. I think with the amendments Councillor Crew mentions in her current motion, this makes the process more black and white, it tightens it up, and it improves it. And lastly, I think it allows Council now and in the future to continue this tradition in all of our communities. Thank you.
Councillor C. McGregor, followed by Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, and through the mayor. I just wanted really to support the motion that was brought forward. I had thought about some other amendments that I had wished to make to the report that had come forward, but I am quite happy with the motion brought forward by Councillor Crew to send it back. My largest concern, and after talking to some members of the Legion throughout the weekend, was the fact that with one main pool within Chatham and removing or not having the ability to have the regular flagpole at the municipal buildings within our communities, I find it, and I struggle very much to think to have our legions from across Chatham-Kent have to travel to Chatham to have their service in their day when they're opening up the Legion Week, as I do the same with community living. And I think we had the biggest turnout for the community living flag raising in Wallaceburg this year, and it was so amazing to see the turnout and the people that came in support of Community Living Week or Community Living Month. And I would really hate to see in the future where they would have to load up a bus of people to get them to Chatham to be able to do that, or eliminate the service altogether. So I very much support this being sent back to administration, and I thank Councillor Crew for bringing the motion forward. Thank you.
Councillor Bondi, followed by Councillor Jubenville.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'd like to make a motion. I sent this to Judy earlier. So do I just say it?
Yes.
Thanks.
Section D, I think, is the one that you'd like to amend.
Pardon?
You had indicated that you would like council, so I think in D, you're asking for an amendment that all requests of flag flying must be made to council?
Yes. So that's it. So that any flag flying request be forwarded to council, any councillor can then bring the recommendation to council to be voted on. Now, the reason that I'm making this motion is I read the report thoroughly, and I don't really disagree with it. A couple of things that I saw that I think this motion would remedy is, for instance, the VON, Victorian Order of Nurses, doesn't fall into the criteria to have that flag flown. I've worked with VON, and they're very volunteer dependent. So raising that flag, I think, is probably a good idea. Another one, and again, these are just sort of like one-offs, but the Office of Volleyball Tournament. If we're hosting a volleyball tournament for all of Ontario, I really don't see the harm in, raising that flag. Now, the reason I think that it should be a council decision is giving the authority to the manager of corporate communications. Well, that could be a different person in 6 months. And we as a council, this is a flag that whatever flag, we're raising to celebrate something. So shouldn't council, we represent the people, that's the idea. Shouldn't it be us that make that decision, that vote on that decision? There were approximately 45 requests last year. That's not a lot of time taken. We're very well paid for what we do, in my opinion. We would take the time, and if if there's a request to fly a flag, and if it's something frivolous and silly like International Raccoon Day, like nobody's going to pick it up, nobody's going to bring it to council. If it's something like the Terry Fox flag that I'm sure would have unanimous approval, we won't spend any time on it. It'll be on the consent agenda and it'll go through. Now, if it's something that's a little more controversial, and we can probably all guess what those ones are, I don't like the idea that council said, or individual councilors, somebody comes to us and says, how dare you fly that flag, or how dare you not fly that flag? And then we say, oh, well, it's not us, it's administration. They make that call. I think that's kind of chicken on our part. I think we vote on a flag and we own it. If you vote for and or against a flag, all of which takes moments, then our name's on it as a council and as individual councilors. I don't think it's asking much. I think it's logical. I think it's fair. And again, it's not complicating the thing. It's just clearing it up. It's a council decision, what flags are flown. We're not going to waste a lot of time on it. If the request comes, if nobody picks it up and brings it to council, we send a nice letter saying no councilor chose to bring this forward. Thank you very much for your request. And we move on. I think it's fair that we do this. It's a council decision. And again, it doesn't take a lot of time. And we as a council, we put our stamp on it and we make that decision. I think that's fair. So that's the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Crew, Councillor Crew, do you consider this a friendly amendment? No? Okay. So, Madam Clerk, we'll pass over to you as far as the procedure.
Am I on? Thank you. I'm just wondering if this is contrary to the motion, Judy.
The clerk's going to comment on that right now.
All right, thank you.
So I can speak to that, yes, thank you. So, Councillor Bondi, if your request is to amend D to not be the manager of corporate communications, it's council, then we can take that as an amendment. If it fails, then it goes back to the original one. If your whole concept is to not have this policy but change it, that it's all to council and all of these steps change, that's different, and it would have to be a separate motion after this one that's on the floor is voted on.
Okay, I don't know, you're the clerk, I'm not, so whatever, like what's the best way to do this? Like, I just want it to be on the floor and be voted on. So what's the best procedural way that you would?
So the way that the policy is written now is that it's the responsibility of the manager of corporate communications to receive the request and to approve them according to the policy that's on the floor, as is now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's written in the policy in C and D, and that's his responsibility. If you're asking for that to now be council, that's a different motion, and you'd have to wait for this one to be on the floor. If it's just one step that you want council to do, which is in there in the appeal process, then we just need clarification from you. Is it one part of the motion that you're changing, or is your intent that council oversees all of this?
No, my intent is to, exchange, manager of corporate communications with council. So if that just makes an amendment, I'm obviously not following you all that well, right? So why don't you just tell me?
So I think probably the clearest way is to leave the policy as is at this point, and if it doesn't pass, then you could bring back that it's the policy to come to council. 'Cause
Okay,
it sounds
sure.
like you want council to make all of the decisions and that the manager of corporate communications does not.
Yeah, precisely. Okay,
Okay.
all right, sure.
So we'll wait until after this
Okay.
motion.
Okay, Councillor Juvenville and then Councillor B. McGregor.
Okay, so I just want to, I want to make sure I know what I'm commenting on. So we're not, so what Councillor Bondi said is not part of the, okay. Okay, so I did like the report. Thank you for bringing it, and I found it to, I was pleasantly surprised with the report as it was before this amendment. I find, because I'm democratically principled, which I think everybody knows that, I have a bit of an issue with one person, again, making decisions, and it's no offense. I preface this by saying I'm not targeting the person who would be making the decisions. I hope you know that, okay? So it wouldn't matter. I just have an issue with one person making the decisions. So for that reason, I can't adopt this policy. I like the idea of council making the decision on it. It could, if they were very simple requests, they could be passed in consent agenda and they wouldn't even have to be pulled. So it, like, I echo what you're saying. It could be a very easy policy. So unfortunately, I won't be able to support this. And I like the idea of the community flagpole, and I don't like the idea of one person making the decision on it, no matter who that one person is. It's not targeting anybody, just I don't like the idea of one person doing it. Thank you.
Ms. Hoffman, do you want to make a comment on that?
Here we go. Let's try it again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The way that the policy is set up in draft right now, the manager of corporate communications would make decisions based on the set of criteria that's in the draft policy, which you would approve here. So that individual would take that criteria and run each request through it, so not individually making the decision necessarily. And I can certainly assure you, knowing what importance has been placed on the flag policy, that I'm quite certain that my colleague, if he had any question in his mind, would also be consulting with our CAO, to whom he reports, also our coordinator of diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, the clerk, etc. So, and if in question, certainly would gather the feedback from this group, but not making it individually, making it on the criteria that you approved tonight.
Yeah, Councillor Juvenville, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Kathy. Just to confirm, so even with this revision, if a request goes to the manager and he declines it, then it would come to council anyway, if it was a request that he declined?
Mr. Mayor, if there is a decline, then we will send the decline information to council in a report to council so that you can then make a decision about whether or not you agree with that assessment or not, and if you want to do something differently with the request.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Councillor B. McGregor, followed by Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Certainly appreciate the motion put forward by Councillor Crew and the work that's been done on this report. And it's helpful to hear the clarification. I know maybe for some of those listening at home or that didn't have a chance to read the whole report that might be here tonight, the criteria that we're talking about right now is criteria that we're approving. Someone would test that proposal through, and then it says right in the report here, and I'll read it. In the event there's a dispute between the organization and the municipality as to the eligibility of a request, the appeal process shall be through the municipal council, having full and final say as to whether or not the request to fly a flag will be granted through a report to council. Further, council shall be informed of all requests and approvals or denials for flag flying through the communication package. So I think it's pretty straightforward and clear in the policy that we'll see these in each communication package, and if there's a denial of a request, that's going to there's an appeal process that ultimately will be the decision maker. So I think a lot of the concerns that we're hearing around decision-making. Ultimately, it is we as council who are making these decisions. We're setting criteria, and ultimately we will hear appeals and see those approvals and or denials in the communicated items. So I think that's helpful if you're listening at home or didn't have a chance to read the report and are here tonight, that we still are taking full responsibility for this process. Thank you.
Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So I just also want to echo appreciation for staff for the detail in this report, and also to Councillor Crew's small amendments. I think the small amendments made really do refine the policy as it's set. You know, something that's important to think about when we're approving policy and we're thinking about implementation is oftentimes if you change the context of what the policy is about. So for example, if flag was replaced with recreation programs or book spot at a library, for example, then it becomes a bit easier to think about how council sets a direction and a policy and a strategic framework, and then we impart that on staff to implement as part of their daily operations. So I actually think that this policy is really generous in giving council more operational oversight than we would have for other areas of the policy, but certainly can appreciate, because of the history of the conversations that we had about flags, this is necessary. And I also wanted to emphasize that really as a council at any point in time, if we would like to conduct a review, an evaluation, or receive a summary information report about this or any policy, all we have to do is ask. And so, you know, perhaps that's something that we can keep on radar if we start to see that there are many denials that are coming through based on the policy and council is overturning them, then perhaps that's a signal to us that we need to review the policy in and of itself. But I'm very supportive of putting this policy in place as a framework to move forward with. I think that it is clear for our community and clear for partners across the municipality, and look forward to seeing many flags flown underneath our municipal flag at the local civic center and other communities as well. Thank you.
Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Worship. To Kathy. It states that they must be made 6 weeks prior to the event. Now, if they are denied, I take it, like, let's talk, the bell line. If they wanted a flag flown, is it going to be brought to council prior to, so that they would have that timeline to get it up there?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the idea of the 6 weeks, Councillor Finn, was really to make sure that we have enough room for a requester to request, and that in the event that there is a denial based on the current criteria, that there's still enough room to get that information to council to bring a report to the next regularly scheduled council meeting, so that council could deal with that to make sure that we don't have it so tight for a requester that maybe they miss their event just simply because we couldn't get here for you to opine on the matter. So we're just trying to work within time frames that support the requester.
So they could come and submit it like 2 months in advance, just in case?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Hall for final comments, then over to Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Appreciate all the dialogue tonight. Appreciate Kathy clarifying some of the questions as well. And appreciate Councillor Crew for making the motion and hoping for council support. Thanks.
Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I also want to thank Councillor Hall, because we worked together on getting these amendments about the community flagpole and how community groups in different towns like Dresden or Wallaceburg or wherever, that, you know, people like the Legions and stuff, they don't want to, like Councillor C. McGregor said, you don't want to put all the Legion people on a bus to come and put their flag up at the Civic Center in Chatham. So that made a lot of sense. So this really, I think, really works well. I really appreciate all the conversation. I want to thank staff, because I know this was not an easy task for you guys to put together and come up with this. I was kind of hesitant in the one part where it comes back to us if there's a discrepancy. But we had no process before which wasn't working at all. And it wasn't fair to put it on one office or one group without a process or criteria in place. Now we have that, and may not be perfect, and I'm sure there's going to be some bugs to work out, but I like Councillor Harrigan's analysis of, say it's a library instead, because I was thinking, boy, if I was at work, when they direct me to do my job, here's my job, and if I don't do my job right, or there's a problem, I'm going to go to my manager or people above me. Council's job is to oversee and provide governance and not micromanage and do all the little tedious tasks. Our job is to set direction and to make sure that staff knows that direction that we want them to go in a clear manner. And I think this is nice and clear. Look forward to working with everyone, and I hope everyone supports this.
For voting, we'll go through and ask each councillor to give a yes or no. Over to you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Yes.
Councillor Anderson.
No.
Councillor Bondi.
No.
Councillor Sakachi.
Yes.
Councillor Crew.
Yes.
Councillor Doyle. Councillor Finn.
No.
Councillor Hall.
Yes.
Councillor Harrigan.
Yes.
Councillor Jubenville.
No.
Councillor McDonald.
Yes.
Councillor McGrail.
Yes.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Yes.
Councillor C. McGregor.
Yes.
Councillor Story.
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Councillor Wright.
Yes.
Mayor Caniff.
Yes.
Motion passes 13-5. Moving on to 18B, urban backyard chicken options.
Yeah, this is an information report. We have 4 individuals who want to speak to it. So Councillor Sakachi, followed by Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted to defer my comments for a few moments, as there's just been some additional information that's been brought forth to myself. So I'm going to pass it on to the next speaker and ask you to keep me on the list, please.
All right, Councillor Doyle, followed by Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So chickens, eh? Okay, so I've got a question to start off with, and then a couple more things. So I guess this question is for Nancy, potentially. So underneath the options, it says that, like in the little Excel spreadsheet there, so it says the enforcement costs for PAW and then the coop inspection costs. So can you just let me know the difference between those two things and what they actually entail?
Through you, Mayor Caniff. Okay, the difference between the two costing. So enforcement costs for PWR is for them to do what they're doing now, and when we don't have a bylaw, going out enforcing any prohibited animals that are on properties that aren't zoned appropriately to have them. So because if we added properties, enforcement would increase, so we'd have to have more bodies in place for PWR to do that. And then, then the coop inspections would be, they'd actually physically go on site and measure the distance and the location of the coop to make sure that they are compliant with the bylaw.
Okay, so would you mean like annual inspections kind of thing?
The coop inspection would be an initial.
Okay. So I guess, so thank you very much, and thank you for the report. It's definitely, we've had a lot of talk about this previously, so it's nice to get this back to council. So I would just like to say, so the survey that we did, we had almost 5,000 people respond to that survey?
Correct.
Okay, so normally we have, I would say, like 100 to 300 people do a survey. Is that accurate?
Oh, I believe so. If I would have got 500, I would have been happy.
Right, okay, so normally in surveys, if we have 100 to 300 people do a survey, for the most part, administration, depends on what the survey is about, says this is what the constituents wants, this is what the people want, so this is what we're gonna do. In this one, we had 5,000 people give us answers, way more than we've ever had before. 68% of them said we want people to have chickens, and we said we're gonna leave this as status quo, we're not gonna change it. So it's just wondering why on some things we take what 100 to 300 people say, like gospel, but we have 5,000 people now that tell us what they want, and we just kind of ignore it.
Although there were 5,000 people for the survey, they didn't register to be on the survey. So you could complete the survey more than once. And you could, even though it asked if you were a Chatham-Kent resident, you could say that you were and complete the survey. So I don't know that it was 100% accurate. I do know that there are some backyard chicken supporters that will support communities and vote. Not sure if that was the case here, but we did get an overwhelming amount, yes.
Okay, so do we normally have those security measures set up with any other survey that we're doing, where it has to be somebody from Chatham and that, or the other one's kind of similar?
When we do a survey, we can have them register so that we know exactly how many voted and where they voted, like what area they voted from. The reason we didn't do it in this situation, we thought that people would not want to complete the survey because then we'd have the information of where they live or what community they're in, and we'd be able to figure out where they are, and then we'd go after their chickens. So that's why we didn't do it.
Okay, I thought that somewhere over the line we said what word the people were in the answer to the survey, but I guess not. Okay, so I would like to move recommendation 2, or option 2, I should say. So that is direct staff to undertake a limited backyard chicken pilot project. So, sorry. I'll talk about, I think.
Can I get a seconder for that?
So I'm gonna, I guess Judy, should I explain a little bit more on that before I go?
Sure, go ahead. We can put it up on the screen for you to help.
Okay. I guess if I'm just putting that part up on the screen and then I can talk about the rest afterwards. Okay. So yeah, I would like to move that motion.
To see what put the motion on the screen and.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay. So a seconder for that.
Okay. So I'm going to change a couple things before we get a seconder. So. To start off, the council approve option 2 pilot project only for rural and village residential over 0.5 acres that the bylaw include. So I was thinking originally to do this all rural and village residential, but my issue with that is we might have too many complaints from the smaller properties that live too close together in grouped houses or properties near each other. And if we're going to have a bylaw that we want to work and a pilot project that works, I figure we should make this a little smaller to start, so we have less issues with it and we can see better going forward. So then some of the rules for the actual bylaw, and these are things that they could include but not limited to. Chickens must stay on your own property. If you do not have a fence to keep them on your property, you must keep them in a chicken coop. No roosters. So then we would require a minimum setback from your property lines from neighboring homes and buildings. The coop would need to be located at least 12, I think it's 15, originally 15 to 25 feet from the property lines, depending on the size of the yard. The feed must be stored in a rodent-proof container. We could get rid of number 5 because I put that up in the first part. And then number 6. So I'm just trying to figure out ways to keep the cost down, and the ongoing costs as well. So I would do a one-time application and fee, so maybe $100, $200 for the fee. Helps cover some of the costs. So before they're allowed to have a chicken, they basically apply. If their property meets the criteria of what our pilot project is going to be, they're allowed to basically go forward and set up their chicken coop. Before they're allowed to get chickens, we would go out and inspect. As long as they abide by our rules, then they're good to go ahead with the chickens. A limit of 4 to 6, that might depend on the size of the lot and how the property is zoned, and then demerit points. And so demerit points would basically be, we go and we say, this is how you have to set up your chickens, you're good to go, and then we have neighbor complaints. If your neighbor complains, and we send out bylaw, and it shows that you are not following the rules anymore, that's a demerit point against you. 3 demerit points, you're no longer allowed to have chickens. And then outside of that, I would get rid of annual inspections or anything like that, and just a one-time setup fee to keep our stuff down, our costs down. And I think that is everything. So I'd be looking for a seconder for that.
Madam Clerk, you wanted to make a comment first?
Yes, just Councillor Doyle, thank you for the comments. Just wanted to expand on Ms. Haven's response about the 5,000 people that had filled out the Let's Talk. We heard that there was also a public meeting where there was several people in attendance who spoke perhaps more towards the opposite. There were agricultural people that were speaking on the other end. And also, there was a lot of work that she did with regards to contacting departments with regards to their comments and concerns about the chickens. And so we took all of that into consideration when we prepared the report. I just wanted to be clear that it wasn't just focused on the Let's Talk survey.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, can I a seconder for that? Councillor Juvenville? Any other comments? Councillor Doyle first, and then I've got lots of other hands popping up here.
She might have Councillor Jubenville might have a friendly amendment.
Councillor Juvenville, do you have a friendly amendment?
Could
Or
we?
at least a shot at a friendly
I'm
amendment?
going to try. Could we add any properties that are 1 acre or over that are not rural residential or village residential? So 1 acre or over, or larger, I should say, that are not rural or village residential.
Is that a friendly amendment?
It is, but are we able to vote? Could we split up into two, that part into 2 votes?
Yeah, I'm looking 1 through 7 seems pretty tight, that it'd be hard to start, well, I guess you
Well,
can
it'd
start.
be 1 through 7 would go along with both of them, and we would just
Right.
vote on
No, but
point 5 and point 1 separately.
Yes, so the second one would be adding in the non-rural 1 acre. So we want to put that as item 8, so we'll vote on 1 through 7, and then we'll vote on number 8. You tell me. Our clerk's keeping me in line here, and so she's going to fill us in.
So to be clear, the first sentence there where it says that council approve option 2 for rural and village residential over ½ an acre will be the 1 vote. And then we'll separate the vote to be all 1 acre properties. That's in Appendix C, right? And then 1 through 7 are actually conditions to be included in the bylaw.
Correct.
Hands, who wants to comment on, okay, I'm just going to go through here. If you can put your hands up. I saw quite a few hands pop up here. To right, all. Okay. Gotcha. Keep your hands up, please. Just. Ooh. Okay, so it would be easier to say who's not putting up their hand, but. All right, so Councillor Doyle, do you have any final, you're good with what's on there? Any comments? If not, I'll proceed on.
Yeah, no,
you'll have
I
your
get to
final.
I get to talk at the end again?
You get,
Then I'm good.
you
for
and
now.
Councillor Juvenile get the final say.
Okay.
Councillor Juvenile, anything to add?
Sorry. No, I don't have anything to add. This is pretty good.
So we'll start the list. I've got 3, 6, I've got 8 people to speak. Okay, so Councillor Wright, followed by Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'd like to see us vote first on option 1 for status quo. Over the weekend, I've had quite a lesson in chickens and eggs. And all the farmers, they have to have inspections on the barns where they're done by a third party. through the egg board and the broiler board, and that person is not allowed to go from farm to farm to farm without showering and changing his coveralls. That is a good way to start moving diseases around when you start going from one property to another to another. And that was the concern wasn't about the amount of eggs that would be raised, it's about the way the disease would be transferred. And if a disease is found, there's a circle drawn for 10 kilometers where everything is quarantined. And the farmer asked me, well, who's going to quarantine the backyard chickens? So, like, I couldn't answer that, but there's quite a risk with the bird flu if it does ever get into a flock, even a private flock. And the disposal of the birds has to be done by permits and special people picking them up on a farm, and his concern was that they wouldn't be disposed of properly on the rural areas. So, thank you.
So Councillor Wright, if this fails, then I can go to you. I'll go to you to move item 1 then, to as the second. Okay, Councillor Hall, followed by Councillor McGrail.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Yeah, looking forward to hearing everybody's questions and the comments here tonight. I do have a question, though, with Councillor Doyle's motion. Can someone from staff just, give me a little more clarity about the rural and the village residential? Can someone describe that a little bit more to me? Where are we talking about? Can you give me some names? And I don't expect you to list everything, I guess, but just to give me a little bit of a better idea of where that is in Chatham-Kent.
So rural residential, so in Ward 1 would be Stevenson, Tilbury East, and in Ward 2 we're looking at, like, for rural residential, Blenheim Junction, Linwood Subdivision, Mall, Porky's Corners, Prairie Siding. In Ward 3, Ward 3 being, just want to make sure everybody else knows what we're talking about. Ward 3 being East Kent, Bothwell, Richtown, Thamesville, is Coatsworth, Glenwood, that was Ward 1, I'm sorry. And I also want to say I apologize to council for giving out the wrong list of the breakdown, but for Ward 1, for village residentials, Coatsworth, Glenwood, Jeanette's Creek, Port Alma, Erio, Giles, Kent Center, Shrewsbury. For village residential in Ward 2, which is Blenheim, Raleigh, is Cedar Springs, Dealtown, Fletcher, North Buxton, South Buxton, Croton, Don Mills, Kent Bridge, McCay's Corners, Morpeth, Highgate. And then for Ward 4 is North Kent, is Eberts, Louisville, Tupperville, Whitebread, Bradley, Dover Center, and Grand Point.
Thank you for that detailed description. Thank you, Mayor Caniff.
Councillor McGrail, followed by Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you. I just need to declare a conflict of interest right now from my work.
Okay, duly noted. Councillor Sakachi, followed by Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Nancy, I greatly appreciate all the conversations over the last, I guess, over a year and a half. I'm just looking at the motion now, and I guess it's just although I did receive it a few minutes before the meeting, it's just a lot to process. And I guess what I was hoping to see, so it won't be limited to, is this mic even? It doesn't sound right. Yeah. Okay, so Nancy, just a little bit of the process. So when we establish a new bylaw, just give me a really brief overview of the steps that you do when you go into writing a new bylaw. So if we're directing you to put these all into a bylaw, this is basically us just coming, providing you direction, and you're just going to write the bylaw, and then it'll come back to council at a later time. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So,
yeah. So go ahead. Sorry.
So what would happen is I would again take the information from all the other municipalities and take the best information that's in there and write the bylaw, and then we would have a public meeting to discuss the contents of the bylaw, and deputations would be allowed then, and then it would come back to council for review.
Okay, okay, thanks. I guess just to, sorry, I guess just to make the decision-making process, if it's easier, because I just feel that we're going to start literally going through the process number by number. Is that what we're going to do now when we vote? We're going to vote by each individual number on this, or is this like
No,
all
it's
together?
1 through 7.
1 through 7?
So 1 through 7 is included, but we're going to talk about the rural, and then there was a second one to talk about urban being 1 acre or greater.
And the
So that's-
reason why I asked that, Mayor Caniff, but is 1 through 7 going to be still apply to the over 1 acre?
Applies to both, yes.
Okay. So I guess just a comment to try to simplify this. I do understand Councillor Wright's, his direction, but in thinking of all this, I think that the motion should be just a lot more simpler, which I know that we already have a motion on the floor, but if it does fail, I think that what I'm going to bring forward, if council, I'm just trying to avoid it being very convoluted, is just that administration draft a bylaw for council's consideration for permitting of backyard chickens in rural residential and village residential zone properties with appropriate setback options, that the bylaw preparation include a one-time permanent application and public process. So at the end of the day, when it comes back, we can say this is what we want, but we can also just say no. And then we can just essentially change our mind. And if Councillor Doyle or Councillor Jubenville or whoever sees the bylaw and wants to add this, I think it's just an easy way for us to just have a really brief conversation instead of picking and choosing 1 through 4 through 5 through 7, and then again, and it's just an easy way for it to come back to save us a lot of pain, to be honest with you.
Councillor Doyle, did you,
Sorry, 1 through 7 are suggestions that I wanted to be included with the bylaw. So it should really say that the bylaw may include, but not limited to. So those aren't, everything is set in stone that's right there. That's just, hey, here's some feedback that we've gotten. Take this information when you're doing your bylaw and use it if you think it'll help.
so you wanted to
Just change it so it says that the bylaw may include, but not limited to, on the third line there.
So, Madam Clerk, you had a suggestion?
Yeah, just from the one that you had sent to us, I think it said that the following items be considered but not limited to.
That's perfect.
And when you're drafting this, how long do you feel the pilot project is one of the direct, as I look through here, if we're polishing up this?
I was actually going to ask that earlier, I forgot. So I was going to do a year or 2 years. What would be normal for a pilot project or something like this? I would think, based on some of the other cities, it looked like they did like 2 to 4 years. Or 2
Or
or 3 years.
unless you want to leave it to the report to come back, I just.
Yeah, is that something that you can, okay. Yeah, I
Okay,
would
so
leave-
that'll be part of the,
Yeah, I
if
would
this
leave that
passes, to come back to the report,
to the
okay.
bylaw, yeah, thanks.
So we'll change that to reflect, this is not all-inclusive, kind of the blend of what Councillor Scotchy was talking about. Are the wording changes, I just want to hold off here, just to. No, is it already in there? Council approve option 2 only for. Okay, so we're going to put that in there. I'll continue with the, going down the list. Anything else, Councillor Scotchy?
No, I guess no.
And Councillor Juvenile, are you okay with this change? Okay.
If I might just give some information about pilot projects. The thing about a pilot project is it's more permanent than you think. The pilot projects will require enforcement, and if the pilot ends, enforcement will still need to happen whether the participants are permitted to keep their chickens until the end of their life, or whether they have to remove them from the property at the end of the pilot. We can't be guaranteed that we can be guaranteed that enforcement will continue to receive complaints. So at the end of the project, if they're not permitted to keep them, they would have to remove the coops and rehome the chickens. So there could be some issues with the rehoming part. And with Tecumseh, they did a pilot project, and at the beginning of the project, they knew that noise and odor and the animal welfare were going to be the top complaints, and that was why they discontinued their project. And it upset some of the chicken owners because the ones that were doing a good job were like, they knew that in the beginning when they approved it, and now a year, 2 years later, Tecumseh they're saying not to permit it because of noise, animal welfare, and smell. So that's something to consider. The other things was, how do you pick a community? But you're talking village residential and rural residential, so that's different. But the only problem with that is if it's just village residential and rural residential and it's a pilot, people will think, oh, it's a pilot, and that at the end of the pilot, possibly now they're going to add more properties to it. But if the pilot ends, during that time, PWR still has to go out and enforce, and they're going to say, well, why are you going to enforce chickens on me in Chatham when maybe after the pilot we'll have it in Chatham too for the smaller lots. So that's the only concern with pilots that I can see. And again, I think it was written in the report, if council's not considering to go permanent, then a pilot shouldn't be considered. Those are just my thoughts.
Okay, I will move on. We've still got another 4 speak. Councillor Crew, followed by Councillor Anderson.
Okay. This was very confusing to me because I didn't realize it was just some suggestions, guidelines, correct? Yeah. So, and Councillor Jubenville, your 1 acre, is that urban, like in Chatham, is that what that meant? As long as it was big enough?
It could be anywhere in Chatham-Kent, but it has to be 1 acre or more.
Okay.
So it could be zoned anyway.
Okay, thank you. Nancy, I'm glad you said that because I was looking at this and I'm thinking like that the only time you do a pilot like this is that you're going to do it permanently. So I think that I get it. I get that the idea of testing it out, but then what do you do? It's like, you know, chickens can live a long time. Most of them do. They live a long time. So this could be a very long thing. I would support, like, I'm probably going to support this, but I wish we'd, like Councillor Sakachi's motion, I wish it would have got up here. With these options and things in there, I would like you to take out, though, I don't know why we're saying maybe 100, 200. We shouldn't be suggesting that. I think that should come from staff. They should do that, you know, through surveys or whatever, the work that you do. It shouldn't be us sitting around here going nickel and dime. Yeah, throw, you know, maybe 100, 200. That might not cover it. And if we have to take care of some staff charges, like for our contractor for Pet and Wildlife, to enforce this or whatever we're going to do. I'm just kind of up in the air. Either if I really would like to see the permanent option because it is going to be a permanent option eventually. So yeah, I agree with that. I didn't help.
Councillor Anderson, followed by Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if Councillor Doyle would consider it a friendly amendment to remove any of the number values placed in the suggestions. So the 12 to 25 feet, the $100 to $200, and the 4 to 6 chickens.
I would.
And just let staff decide, you know, the appropriate, you know, distance from the property lines, what their fee should be. And I mean, I think if somebody has an entire acre, they could probably have more than 6 chickens, and somebody that has less than 0.5, maybe they shouldn't be allowed to have 4. So I think that we should leave that up to administration to come up with those numbers, if you find that friendly.
I'm 100% good with that. Those were originally just suggestions for numbers as I was putting it down, but if we want to go that way, yeah, for sure it's friendly.
Thank you.
Councillor Jubenville, are you good with that? Yes. I think we're going to set a record tonight for the most changes to a motion. All right, so Councillor Anderson, anything else? No? Okay, Councillor B. McGregor, followed by Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. And I might be introducing another change, so we might set the record. My main concern is the restriction. I mean, we're actually debating an urban backyard chicken bylaw, and we're saying we're not going to do it in urban areas. So I don't think that restricting to urban properties that are over an acre is maybe the most equitable way to do this. I think we're maybe restricting people of different economic means from participating in this program based on the size of property they have. I think other things like setbacks are probably more important than the size of the property. So, ideally, I would like to see the provision around restricting it to acre urban lots taken out. I would think we should be able to do this anywhere. And to Councillor Wright's concern about disease mitigation, I think that likely, if we're thinking about disease mitigation, it's probably safer to have backyard chickens in Birdland than it is in Bothwell. So, I think that from what I hear, chickens don't fly, and a chicken in Birdland is going to be quite a ways from a farm, and likely those people are not going to be also onto farms that have chickens. And just for some clarity, right now, where can you have chickens in a non-sort of agricultural setup? So could someone living out in the country right now have chickens on their property?
If their property is zoned ag.
Yeah, and I think that's important to recognize that right now we have a bunch of people that have these chickens. We also have a bunch of people that don't live in those ag areas that have backyard chickens, and they haven't been an issue. So when we're thinking about disease mitigation, I think a program where we actually know where those chickens are is probably more helpful than one where we don't really know where they are. And I think about our animal control bylaw as well, that's worked reasonably well. We have stipulations over the number of cats or dogs you can have. We don't go out and check those all the time, but we do it on a complaint-based system, and I think that works well. So when there's bad actors and the neighbors complain, we go out and do enforcement, and I think that's something that could work very well with this as well. So, personally, I'd be in support of a permanent bylaw at this point. I think we've discussed this at length many times, and I think we should move to that stage. But if this is the stepping stone to get there, I would support that. So my one request is that, it's kind of tough to see this, but that we don't limit it to non-urban properties. So to Councillor Doyle, I know you've been pretty flexible with amendments here.
I'm not getting what you mean.
If I allow that for a friendly, can we still split that up to vote?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
If I allow that friendly motion, can we still split that up to vote? So we vote on rural and village residential
Yes,
separately?
that's what I would suggest, is that you change it, make the same parameter for both, but then you can split the two for if somebody doesn't want rural versus urban, and
Right, okay. And
you
then
certainly can. The clerk wants to ask a question.
Okay.
So just back to Councillor Brock McGregor,
Yeah.
we're not clear on what you mean. So you say not just, so we have the chart here with our different properties and,
Yeah, so the restriction to, it says the pilot project only for rural and village residential over 0.5 acres.
yes.
So I'm just saying no restriction. So,
So you want all municipal, all properties
Yep.
in Chatham-Kent?
yeah. And then I
So-
think that the other criteria around like setbacks would disqualify some properties that are very small, but I think that we should do the pilot project anywhere. I think that the people in Birdland or on Phyllis Ave or down the street on O'Neill, I think that they can responsibly do this as well as people in Tupperville or Bothwell.
So, Councillor Doyle, that's significantly different than what you're proposing here.
That's a new motion.
That's a new motion.
So, I don't know how it's a new motion. If we're looking at a pilot project, it's just changing where we want to do it. So there's restrictions listed up there of where we'd want to do it. I just don't want those restrictions. So
Yeah,
if we put it up as an option, you can restrict it to these properties as one thing we can vote on, or we don't restrict it to any properties if that doesn't.
So I guess, Councillor Doyle, if you wanted to
This
say
means everywhere.
pilot project, because what you're,
Yeah.
Councillor B. McGregor, you're just saying anywhere, regardless of how big it is or where it is, you're just saying pilot project, anybody can have chickens.
So I'm saying
Anywhere.
don't restrict it by the zoning class, but there's other recommendations that have been made that staff may entertain, like the 12 to 25-foot setback that we're talking about. So that would restrict some small properties with very close neighbors. But, you know, whether a half acre or 3/4 of an acre or 1 acre property, I don't know if we know on the fly what the best size is. And I just think we're over-restricting the project.
Councillor Doyle, sorry, are you good with making this change, or do you want to stay with this?
Can I see that change? Is that, so are we,
Okay,
are we
just
still, will we
council
still be
proof.
voted on both separately, and we're just switching out the and residential properties over 1 acre for all residential properties over a half acre?
So I think my recommendation would be if you take out on the very first line where it says rural and village residential, so it just says that council approve option 2 pilot project as the first line. And then you could have another line that would say restricts it to said properties, so we vote on that separately, restricts it to half acre urban properties on a second line. So then we're voting on just approving the project, and then we have separate lines that we're voting on where it would be restricted to. Because I would like the option of voting for the program without restrictions to all properties.
So the concern with all properties, the one nice thing about the pilot project is we can walk or crawl before we walk. We'll know exactly where, you know, where we're at with enforcement, because it might end up being an increased cost. And all properties, when we were quoted from PAWR for inspections and everything, was like $398,000, and then $87,650 for enforcement for the year.
Sorry, Councillor Beamer, are you referring to anybody? So if I have a manufacturing facility, I can...
No, residential properties, urban residential properties.
Okay.
Like,
Sorry,
yeah.
so...
I don't think
commercial-
Tech Savvy's gonna have backyard chickens, so just residential
Just-
properties.
Okay, so, all right, we're at a conundrum here. So Councillor Doyle, it comes back to you.
Yep. So
This was your motion.
Yeah, what Councilor McGregor said last time, so if we kind of split that up, we do council approve option 2 for the pilot project, and then split up voting on rural and village residential over 5 acres, or over 0.5 acres. And then the second one would be rocks to all residential properties over 0.5 acres.
Well, he's looking for, he doesn't want to limit the size, so there's two pieces.
Oh, so we can't vote on those separately then?
So yes, so I see this saying, okay, for rural, and then people are going to vote on the rural side and the urban side. But then the other piece is the 0.5 acres. He wants to get rid of that. You're saying that, are you good with that, or no, you want to keep the 0.5 acres?
I guess I'm just worried that if we are doing a pilot project, again, the walking before we run, we open this up to everybody right off the bat, we're going to have too many complaints, and the pilot project is not going to go good, and it's going to fail, and nobody's going to get to have chickens.
All right, so you want the motion, you want to keep your
So
motion?
I'm going to have to...
The 0.5, and we'll have a secondary to vote on the urban.
If we were doing a permanent one, that would be different, but just for a pilot project, I don't want to mess everything up by making it too big, too fast.
Okay, so Councillor
Sorry, Rob.
McGregor, we're going to continue on with as it is.
Just as a question of clarity, if I vote, is there a way to vote on this so that I'm voting for a pilot project but not voting for where it's going to be restricted to?
Well, you're going to vote on doing the rural side for 0.5 acres or greater. Then we're going to have a second one. Do you want to put it in the urban and 0.5 acres or greater? That's so you can support rural and you don't have to support urban, or you can support both. So you have two different options to do that, or two different votes. Okay, so we got Councillor Harrigan followed by Councillor C. McGregor.
All right, I'm going to enter the coop on this one. Here we go. So I would like to say that I appreciate it. I also really appreciate Councillor Doyle's clarification that the bylaw would consider but not limit items 1 through 7, because I think whatever system we have for enforcement for chickens should mirror similar systems for other animal welfare, right? So if demerit points complicates things or causes training, then I don't know if I would be supportive of that, but I would lean to staff to do that. I have what I think is a friendly amendment.
We will officially set a record.
Which puts me at the top or the bottom of the pecking order, I'm not sure. I would actually like to remove the 0.5 acre criteria for rural and village residential. In the chart that we received, there was the recommendation to either base it on the zoning or base it on size. And I think this kind of is trying to layer the two together. And I appreciate that we want space between hen houses or coops. But when I think about, I will use some village or rural residentials in my area, Coatesworth. If you live in Coatesworth, there's maybe 30 houses in this little hamlet. If somebody has a 0.3 acre property versus a 0.5 acre property, it's still a very rural village. Prairie Siding and Jeanette's Creek would be very similar. There's still tons of space in between those properties. The properties have the look and feel typically when you're looking at rural residential or village residential of a farm. Again, in Jeanette's Creek, some of these properties are a 1/4 acre property, but they have a barn on them, right? So I don't know if there's benefit to having that 0.5 acres. And then I also think it's a bit challenging maybe for staff, right? Then what we do is when we're doing enforcement, we have staff arguing with their property owners about, oh no, it's 0.49 acres or it's 0.51, right? So if we remove the acreage but keep to the rural or the village residential, I think then what we're doing is we're testing the pilot in rural communities in Chatham-Kent. So I wonder if that is a friendly amendment for Councillor Doyle and Councillor Jubenville.
Originally, I went up to that's what I was originally gonna do, but then I went up to 0.5, so we'd be a little bit smaller and we could walk before we run, but I agree with what you're saying, and that's kind of why I wanted to do that in the beginning, so I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
All right, so we're going to drop the 0.5 acres. Councillor Jubenville, are you good with that? So that then, Councillor B. McGregor, that does adjust yours to say, now you'll just be rural and urban. So the first one will say the residential.
Yeah, I'm just speaking to the first clause about rural and village.
So, okay, so in residential properties over 1 acre, so that, are we not changing that? That's what Councillor Harrigan?
No, I was speaking to the rural residential or village residential. Like residential areas would be like in Tilbury or in Chatham. Those
Okay, the urban areas, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, thank you. Those were all of my suggestions and fully support this pilot. I think that there certainly are concerns, but we're a rural community comprised of many different rural communities, and certainly I would make the argument that there's probably a heck of a lot of people right now who live in rural residential or village residential who already have chickens. So we might as well put the mechanisms in place to ensure that there's good animal welfare and good practices to raise healthy, happy chickens. So thanks, Councillor Doyle, for putting this on the floor.
Councillor C. McGregor. You have an amendment?
Thank you, and yeah, thank you through the mayor. I'm not really sure what I support and what I don't support at this point with all the amendments. So I'm hoping Judy will send me a copy that I can read a little bit easier. But I would like to entertain one final amendment. Sorry, and Judy, you don't need to include my amendment if it's accepted as friendly. But if it does, if the recommendation comes back that a pilot maybe take place in Ward 2, I think this has come forward through Councillor Sakachi 2 terms in a row, and now Councillor Doyle, all coming out of Ward 2, that I think maybe it would be appropriate that a pilot project take place in that ward. And I'd be happy if that was a friendly amendment.
Is that friendly, Councillor Doyle?
I'm sorry, but no.
Sorry?
Oh.
No?
I'm
Okay.
sorry, but no. I think this should be Chatham-Kent.
Okay.
Well,
Oh.
rural and village Chatham.
Okay, and if we're going to do a pilot, I thought it was to a smaller area, so that it was my understanding through conversation that it was a smaller area so that it could be successful as opposed to all of Chatham-Kent. I thought that's what I understood from the conversation on the floor. So, and I thought that was Councillor Doyle that had said he wanted a smaller pilot project that didn't encompass all of Chatham-Kent.
Right,
So that would be my suggestion, that come back. But I also would can that also come back at a later date? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, right now this is to create a bylaw that still has to go to consultation and still has to come back to council yet again before any final approval.
That's correct. Yes, it's going to have to come back.
Okay, okay. And so I'm guessing that's not a friendly amendment, so that'll answer my question whether I support this or not. And number two, maybe, I know there was some indication in the report to some of the costs. Do we anticipate that this is going to be an extended cost to our bylaw enforcement, or would it require that we hire special, or I guess it'd be covered under our animal control, but would you be required to have people with special training on chickens, because we don't currently have that? Would you have to expand, would they have to expand their staff? And is that would be included, I guess, in all of the cost? That eventually it would be higher cost to us, obviously. That was pointed out, but would they be required to have somebody different, and would the procedures for passing or inspecting be similar to those of rural? What rural egg farmers or farmers have to go through at this point?
What PAWR would be inspecting would be based on what is in the bylaw requirements. And they inspect coops now. I guess they don't inspect them, I guess they enforce them now if they're in prohibited areas. So they do have the experience of dealing with chickens, and they have chickens at the shelter often. So the costing, depending on what situation you're talking about, if we're doing village residential, the costs, village residential and rural residential, the costs are right there in the report. And for enforcement by PAWR, it would be $13,150, and then the coop inspections would be $43,350. If you add, with Councillor Jubinville's amendment, the 1 acre parcels that are over, properties that are residentially zoned that are over 1 acre, that would be about 828, because the total residential over 1 acre is 1233, but that includes village residential and rural residential. So when you take that out, for anything that's over 1 acre, it would be 828 properties, and we're looking at probably an additional $4,000 for PWR to enforce, and for coop inspections another $10,000. But again, that wasn't quoted in the RFP, so that would be something that would have to be approved by PAWR. And if it's all residential, also those fees are set out in the report: $87,650 for enforcement costs and $398,250 for coop inspections. And then also that does not include the costs that administration would have to implement the program.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. So, and I'm guessing that will all come back in the report, because it does sound like there is a lot of additional costs for us to entertain this. So, okay, thank you very much for answering my questions.
All right, I'm going to make a couple. Oh, Councillor Thompson. Is he going to make another amendment?
I have a long list of amendments that is going to change everything up here. Actually, I don't. I just think this is a really good example of why we should not create policy on the fly. This has been embarrassing and painful. And it goes back to the flag motion a little bit. I appreciate when staff comes up with policy and we give them direction, because this has been, it feels like, well, it feels like one of the 882 days we have left. But I still need to understand, like, this is all coming back, right? For us to decide upon, right? And some of this stuff could be in here, and some of this stuff maybe not. So what have we done for the last hour? I mean, I don't have a poker face. I appreciate that. But I've seen some people in the audience, and I can only imagine them behind me too. Like, this is, well, one former counselor used to say we're acting too much like government, and I have a tendency to agree with what he used to say, because we need to send this back. I think I'm going to support it because broadly I'm in support of the idea, but I am looking forward to what comes back, and I am not looking forward to this discussion again. And Mr. Mayor, thank you, and I will leave it there.
Okay, I just want to add a couple of comments as I look and I see the chart here of the costs. So if we charge $100 to $200 one time to people that are the chickens, it's not going to come anywhere close to, I'm just making some observations. It won't come close to covering these costs. So we're going to ask the tax base of Chatham-Kent to pick up the difference in inspectors and everything else for all these chickens. By default, that's the only other place it's going to come from. And then if there's an outbreak, if there's a significant disease outbreak, are we going to be paying that? Who pays for it? I mean, the people that are farming chickens, if they lose, I mean, yeah, they'll lose, but what happens with all the other costs? Those are my concerns, and I'm not sure I'm not looking for an answer to those, but I look at some of the overwhelming, I look at the number of communities that have said, oops, we made a mistake, and we're heading down that same road of, we're going to look at it, and when we go try and pull it out as far as it's a pilot project, no, it'll be entrenched to it, and I can't imagine going and try and tell people that, no, you can't have chickens now after 1 or 2 years. So we'll go to Councillor Jubenville and then Councillor Doyle for final comments.
Challenged. Sorry. Just in reference to your comment, Mayor, the $100 to $200, I think Councillor Anderson made a friendly amendment, so that's no longer in there anymore.
No, but if it's, yeah.
Oh,
but
you're just
if we want
referencing.
to try and recover the costs, it might be $1,000
Okay.
to sign. Anyway,
Right.
that's the
Okay.
issue of
I just wanted to
who pays for
clarify.
the cost overruns.
Right.
That'll be addressed in the report if it comes.
I understand that some people have concerns, but based on the areas, if this passes, where it will be allowed, I mean, it's pretty limited. You're looking at small little hamlets, small community settlement areas. So it's not in any of our, I guess, our urban centers. It won't be in Blenheim, it won't be in Chatham, it won't be in Ridgetown, it won't be in Dresden. It'll be in all of these little areas, and off the record, a lot of people have chickens already. So, I mean, I know that there's chickens out there, so I think this is a great way to actually, we're going to be able to police it, I guess, if we incorporate this, because they're already doing it already, so we might as well be in tune with what is happening and be proactive so that none of these bad events that you're speaking of can happen. And I don't want to see it go into the whole community of Chatham-Kent, because I think it might be too large of an undertaking. So I'm comfortable with it staying in these little hamlets and small communities and settlements, except for my friendly amendment with the 1 acre, because I think that's a big enough property, no matter where it is in Chatham-Kent, and there are some in residential areas, but I feel that's a large enough piece of property that it wouldn't hinder or affect any neighbors. So obviously I'm in support of it, so thank you for bringing it forward.
And Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I don't have too much to say. Again, we are a rural community. Like Councillor Harrigan said, a lot of people off the record already have chickens. So let's make this so we can monitor this and open it up to more people who want to have chickens but haven't, because they're not allowed yet. We've had overwhelmingly support in the surveys from constituents that this is something that they want. So if this is something that they want, then why don't we give it to them as a pilot project? Start it off small. If it goes well, we can expand from there. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will, Madam Clerk, can you walk us through the vote here? There's going to be 2 votes, and we'll do it by name.
Yes, so it looks like we have 3 votes. The first one will be on the rural and village residential properties. The second one will be on the residential properties over 1 acre, and then the third one will be what's to be considered in the bylaw. So we'll start with the rural residential and village residential zoned areas. I'll start from the bottom of the alphabet this time. Councillor Wright. No. Councillor Thompson. Yes. Councillor Story.
No.
Councillor C. McGregor.
No.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Yes.
Councillor McGrail has a conflict. Councillor McDonald.
Yes.
Counselor Jubinville,
Yes.
Counselor Harrigan,
Yes.
Counselor Hall,
Yes.
Counselor Finn,
No.
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Crew,
Yes.
Counselor Sakachi,
Yes.
Counselor Bondi,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Allen,
No.
Mayor Caniff.
No.
Motion passes 11 to 6. Now we'll move on to the residential areas with over 1 acre. Counselor Allen,
No.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Bondi,
Yes.
Counselor Sakachi,
No.
Counselor Crew,
Yes.
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Finn,
No.
Counselor Hall,
No.
Counselor Harrigan,
Yes.
Counselor Jubinville,
Yes.
Counselor McDonald,
Yes.
conflict by Counselor McGrail, Counselor B. McGregor,
Yes.
Counselor C. McGregor,
No.
Counselor Story,
No.
Counselor Thompson,
No.
Counselor Wright,
No.
I'll go no.
oh, right, sorry, Mayor Caniff.
No.
Sorry about that. Motion fails 8 to 9. All right, and finally, the draft bylaw to be, may include items 1 through 7. Counselor Wright,
Yes.
Counselor Thompson,
Yes.
Counselor Story,
Yes.
Counselor C. McGregor,
No.
Counselor B. McGregor,
Yes.
Counselor McGrail, oh, sorry, conflict. Counselor McDonald,
Yes.
Counselor Jubinville,
Yes.
Counselor Harrigan,
Yes.
Counselor Hall,
Yes.
Counselor Finn,
No.
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Crew,
Yes.
Counselor Sakachi,
No.
Counselor Bondi,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Allen,
Yes.
and Mayor Caniff.
No.
Motion passes 13 to 4.
Okay, we can move on to the next item. Item D.
Council, there was a motion put on the floor by Councillor Jubinville. The intent of the current motion on the floor is to hire a third party to do ward boundary review. Council has voted on this previously in the RFP report. Therefore, this is a motion to reconsider the appointment of a third party consultant. Councillor Jubinville did not vote on the prevailing side of that motion, therefore cannot bring this motion to the floor at this time. Should another council wish to bring this ward boundary review motion forward, they would have to bring it through the notice of motion portion of the agenda and would have had to have voted on the no side on the April 29th RFP motion. Thank you. And just for the record, it does require a motion to reconsider, does require a 2/3 vote.
Okay, we'll go to item 19, infrastructure and engineering services.
Um,
19A, Ride CK former Route S1 beach bus.
Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'm going to keep the conversation portal rather short. I would like to move that council direct administration to proceed with option 3, funded as an operational variance, and implement the beach bus 1 day per month for 3 months, year period, and staff to include the summary of use of the transit service in a future report or as a part of the mobility master plan to inform future decisions regarding transit service levels and routes, and that if the usership is low and the continuation is still not cost effective or feasible, that staff proceed to terminate the service based on low ridership and include a simple information report to council.
Councillor Doyle.
Happy to second that.
Okay. Councillor Scotchy, anything else you want to add?
Just very shortly, we did have a little bit of try to re-implement this service back when COVID struck, so it has been challenging. I think just from the amount of conversation that I've received, as well as the ECA that we do sit on a monthly basis, we just want to give them a very cost-effective opportunity to see if this is something that can be accessible and usable in our community and feasible. I just think that now that things have opened up considerably, and we have such a wide-based geographical area, that just is something that's very cost effective to operate and try. And if the usership is very low, as said, staff have full direction to just terminate it completely. That's it. Thank you.
Followed by Councillor McGrail.
He said that perfectly.
Councillor McGrail.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Caniff. Couple questions. The operational variance, where is that coming from so I can understand? Is that coming from our transit money, or is this coming from the pot of all of Chatham-Kent?
So the way that thank you. This would come out of our operating budget for 2024. It's I believe just over $1,000, less than $1,500. So instead of pulling it from reserve, given that it's that small of an amount, it would just come out of our operating budget for this year. For clarity, the motion calls for 1 year, which would be this year that we would only look at it.
Sure, thank you. And this, again, so just remember and refresh my memory, because we had a big agenda, is for Erio. This is not bringing the bus to Mitchell's Bay.
No, I believe the way that the reports, it's both. It's the tire service from Mitchell's Bay to Erio.
Okay, that's my questions. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, anyone opposed to this motion? Seeing none, motion passes.
B, update on linear infrastructure capital construction projects for 2024.
This is an information report, so Councillor Story has some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think probably questions for Marissa or Edward. I just wanted to clarify a couple of terms. I think this is a report that is actually very helpful to see every year in terms of the scale of understanding what we faced as a council and as a municipality in terms of the scale of infrastructure that we are looking at every year and how that fits into our overall budgeting and our geographic area. I know oftentimes when I'm talking to residents, the volume of work that we are looking at in our IES department and why sometimes things take longer than others and why sometimes things are so expensive. Just to know the scale of things can often help make that a little more clear. So just a couple of questions from the report, and I thank you for sharing those details. Linear infrastructure, the title of the report. For those of us who are not engineers, linear infrastructure, does that mean roads?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, it does mean roads. We generally use linear and vertical infrastructure to differentiate those asset types. So linear sort of means the roads and sewers and sort of that linear kind of parallel to the ground infrastructure differentiates from vertical, like building related infrastructure.
Okay, that is helpful. So in the appendix that you shared, my aging eyes it was tough to count them all, but you did respond back to me that there was 154. And is that for 2024, like 2024 alone? We're doing 154 infrastructure projects?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. There's 154 project scopes that are planned, committed, underway for construction for 2024. Those may be packaged, so there's approximately 40 programs or packages that those are being delivered under. There is 154 different scopes of construction work happening this year.
Okay, that's great. That's because I think that number is a really important number to know in the scale of what we're doing. You mentioned in the report roads and right-of-ways. Can you just give me a friendly reminder, a refresher of what a right-of-way actually is in this context? Because I know there's some exclusions in the report, so what does this actually refer to?
Yeah, certainly. So the right-of-ways generally refer to the municipally owned corridors where we have our roadways, portions of the boulevard, sometimes sidewalks, and what are our mainline utilities, so sewers, water mains, and gas infrastructure, for example. Generally those corridors.
Okay. And you also referenced core and non-core assets that are defined by the province as part of our asset management plan. So can you share what core and non-core assets are? And then I know we've talked about the asset management plan coming to council and how important that is for sort of the big picture view of assessing what we're doing and where and when. Could you just give that a quick rundown of what that is?
Certainly. So yeah, so core and non-core assets, that definition is put down by the province as part of the asset management regulations. So core assets generally refers to water, wastewater, stormwater, roads, bridges, culvert infrastructure. And then the non-core assets are essentially all the balance of the municipal's assets. That might include, well, it does include transit, municipal fleet facilities, parking lots, fire, all of those pieces. That all of the asset management plans are coming forward to council this summer.
Okay, great. So let's say one or two of these 154 infrastructure projects, let's say there's an extreme weather emergency or something along those lines. What happens if we have emergency repairs or any number of unexpected issues with that? Where would that budget line be? Where would we be pulling from?
Yeah, so we have reserves that we use to fund these infrastructure projects. There is one for the right-of-way infrastructure. There are some for stormwater. There's one for the Disaster Mitigation Adaptation Fund, specifically DMAF funded projects. So we would use those reserves to fund the capital projects and any unexpected costs that might arise as part of completing those capital projects.
Thank you. Okay. And just also gravel roads are not included in this, correct? That's a separate discussion.
That's correct. Gravel roads aren't included only because this is focused on construction projects. So gravel road maintenance would be part of our regular activities, so that this list doesn't cover maintenance activities.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to just bring that to the floor because we're looking at it in your report. It says about $55 million. So we often spend hours talking about items of different levels of cost, often substantially less, and I do think our infrastructure is such a key discussion piece that we have. Just to let the folks at home a quick reminder that this is something that we are looking at every week at council, and the scale of what we're looking at, and when we have 154 projects in 1 year, that's why we have to take all of these things in the calendar, in the budget, and the pressures on our budget and the sometimes difficult decisions we have to make surrounding that. So I appreciate the report and the detail and understanding the sheer number of projects a community the size of Chatham-Kent is working on at any given time. So thank you very much.
Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff, and thank you so much for this report. I just do want to give one shout out to a line item in the report. When I ran for council for my first term in 2018, there were a group of citizens who were very concerned about the safety on Baptist Road and the guardrails that were non-existent between the road and Baptiste Creek, which is getting increasingly larger and closer to the road. And so Edward Soldo and I, when I first met him, we actually did a Ward 1 tour, and I had pointed out that there was some concern around this, and I was very pleased to see that those guardrails are in the design phase and looking to be installed for winter 2024, which will make a lot of drivers coming between Tilbury East and Tilbury feel much safer. But also to Councillor Story's comments earlier, it took 6 years in the making, not because we wanted to ignore the problem for 6 years, but because there are many issues like guardrails or safeties or pedestrian crosswalks that we have to look at and commit to across Chatham-Kent. So sometimes these things do take time, but I really know that our citizens appreciate it when their corner of the world is tended to, and I know that there are many examples of this in the report. So thank you very much to Edward, Marissa, and their teams for getting this to us.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll move on to notices of motion. Councillor Crew.
Nope, there. Teamwork. Okay, I, Councillor Marjorie Crew, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion at the June 10th, 2024 council meeting for discussion and voting. The council reconsider the contract for RFP R24-211 council composition and ward boundary review be awarded to Strategy Corps in the amount of $68,251.50, including HST, and be funded from the Strategic Development Reserve account number 17266, and that this include recommendations for composition of council that will best serve the ward boundary recommendations presented in the report for council's consideration. I also would like to is this the time to do this, Judy? I'd like to waive notice and vote on this tonight. We've already talked about this over and over, and if we could get this done tonight, Councillor Jubenville and I have worked on this, so if we can get it through tonight and get it done, I know it takes 2/3 vote, so Judy, can you tell us what I need to do?
Yes, if you'd like to move that this evening, we require 2/3 votes. So we'd need a mover and a sec. You're moving to waive notice. We'd need a seconder, and then we would call the vote.
Councillor C. McGregor.
Happy to second.
Okay. So with that, any questions relating to dealing with it tonight versus? That's what we're going to talk about right now. So if you have any questions about dealing with it tonight, otherwise we'll vote on it to say 2/3. No one. Okay. So we will go. We'll start and go through.
Okay, Councillor Allen. This is strictly to waive notice to be able to talk about it this evening.
Yes.
Councillor Anderson.
Yes.
Councillor Bondi. Councillor Sakachi.
Yes.
Councillor Crew.
Yes.
Councillor Doyle.
Yes.
Councillor Finn.
Yes.
Councillor Hall.
Yes.
Councillor Harrigan. Yes. Councillor Jubenville.
Yes.
Councillor McDonald.
Yes.
Councillor McGrail.
Really quickly. Yes.
This is strictly to be able to talk about it this evening.
Yes.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Yes.
Councillor C. McGregor.
Yes.
Councillor Story.
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
No.
Councillor Wright.
Yes.
Mayor Caniff.
Yes.
All votes are in and motion passes 17-1, which is a 2/3 vote. So we can move on now. It is a motion to reconsider. So we have Councillor Crew moving it. We need a seconder, and then we require a 2/3 vote
Councillor C.
to
McGregor.
reconsider it.
Yes, I will second that.
Okay. All right. So Councillor Crew, will start with you, then C. McGregor, and then if you put up your hands if you want to speak.
Okay, I think we've talked about this, and I'm bringing it back to reconsider because there was just some minor wording in there, and when Councillor Jubenville presented the opportunity to bring this back to the floor, since I was on the prevailing side of it, we need 2/3 vote to make this happen, and then we can get moving on with this. And I think Councillor McGregor has an amendment.
Councillor C.
Thank
McGregor.
you. Thank you, and through the mayor, I do. And I would like to see added to this motion.
Sorry, can I interrupt for a second? We're just voting on, now you need 2/3 to reconsider this. So it's a 2/3 vote. We're voting on that one. So this is just the what's on the screen here. And then we can talk about the motion, and we'll get if we get 2/3 on this one.
Sorry.
So some may want to waive notice to be able to talk about it this evening, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're for it. So that's why we're going through it twice. It may seem a bit redundant. So now the motion on the floor, we've waived notice. Now the motion is to reconsider the RFP vote. If we get that on the floor, then we can talk about that this evening. If it fails, that means that there's no reconsideration and it's done. Okay?
Okay.
We'll start the other way now. Councillor Wright?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
No.
Councillor Story?
Yes.
Councillor C. McGregor?
Yes.
Councillor B. McGregor?
Yes.
Councillor McGrail?
No.
Councillor McDonald?
Yes.
Councillor Juvenville?
Yes.
Councillor Harrigan?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Finn?
Yes.
Councillor Doyle?
Yes.
Councillor Crew? Councillor Sakachi?
No.
Councillor Bondi?
Yes.
Councillor Anderson? Councillor Allen?
No.
Mayor Caniff?
Yes.
Motion passes 14-4, which is a 2/3 vote. We're back in the game.
All right, now, Councillor Crew, you're moving this. Councillor C. McGregor, do you second this?
Yes, I do.
All right, so Councillor Crew, do you have anything to say about the motion? Then I'll go to, okay, Councillor C. McGregor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and through the mayor. Actually, I would like to have something added to this motion, and I will put it back to Councillor Crew as friendly amendment to add to this, and I would like added that going forward, should this pass, going forward, that administration prepare a report once every term of council with the information on how ward boundaries might change if they are based on population by ward and what those populations would be.
Councillor Crew, do you consider that a friendly amendment? Okay. So, sorry, go ahead.
Just a question for Councillor McGregor. So, as you know, if we do that exercise within a given term, it won't have effect unless it's done within the first 3 months of the term. So, is your intent that it be done at any time, like any year, or is the plan so that it'll be done in early enough so that it could take effect in an election?
I think that it would be best if there was anything to come from the report, any motions that come from the report, that it should come before the appointed time where council can still make a decision that would affect the decision within that term and in elections within that term. But it obviously not within the first 3 months. So I think at this point, if we were looking at this right now and there were decisions to be made, correct me, Judy, if I'm wrong, I think we have into the fall before we hit that cutoff, do we not? So that pretty much brings us halfway through our term. So if it comes within the first half of the term, then I think that would be appropriate. And then leave it to administration discretion at when that comes.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I just wanted to confirm
Okay.
that it wasn't just intended to let the next council know, but it was actually intended to take
Yeah.
effect at the end of the
No,
term.
it's a moving forward thing that I think that whether anything's acted upon or not, I think it's good knowledge for every council to have.
So do you suggest changing to it?
Councillor C. McGregor, then could we put something maybe in your number 2 that just said within the first year of a term or within
Yes,
the first
please,
half
that's
of the
perfect.
term? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, so we want to stick to what's in here, so I don't want to go through another debate on the merits of whether we should be doing or shouldn't we. Anyways, so Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It was in regards to the amendment, and I just need a little bit of a better explanation because my memory's a little fuzzy, but I remember the last meeting of council, we talked about how we shouldn't be making decisions for future councils in regards to, it was Councillor Wright's, he wanted to see a bylaw, he wanted to see a by-election every time there was a situation like what we had in his ward. And we said at the time we couldn't do that because we're making a decision for future councils. And while I appreciate it's only an information report, is this not along the same lines?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe Councillor McGregor's point is, let's get an information report to every council, and then there can be a decision of whether we need to do changes to ward boundaries or not. So it's not waiting for a notice of motion to come forward. This information would come forward, and then council can take a direction if they so wish. So we're not making the future councils follow a particular, what we're deciding tonight. We're just saying, here's an information report, and it's bringing it to the forefront.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Yeah, fully support this this motion, and I support the amendment as well. And just to add clarity to it, I think too, you know, this is a general practice. I know this is what the federal government does, the provincial government does. They take a look at their, you know, their riding structure. I don't think it's every 4 years, but you know, it's every so often, every 8 years or 10. I'm not sure, but I think that's a good, you know, a good practice to follow. I know this is always, you know, since I've been on council, this has always been a question that I've received, especially during election time, to take a look at this. So I think having this set up for the future will be something that, you know, council of the day will always get this information. So I think it's always going to be something that will be top of mind. So I think this is a good practice for us to follow, and something good that we can put forth. Thanks.
Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I support this. I'm wondering how normally we find out our population numbers with the federal census. So I'm just more, maybe it's just more of a process piece. How will we necessarily know our populations every 4 years? I think the census is every 5 years, and I'm not trying to throw a wrench into the plans. We actually don't have official population numbers until the census comes in. So would it make any sense to have it? I know that doesn't line up with our terms, but at the same time, we won't have official population numbers every 4 years. So my only question would be that, how would we know our official population stats otherwise?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think administration would be mindful when those times came out. There may be reports where there might not be any change because we don't have those numbers, but we would look for those and do the best information that we could in future reports.
Okay, Councillor Crew, anything final to add? Okay. Judy, or Madam Clerk, you want to go through the roll call?
We will. I forget if we're going from 8. We're starting at the top. Councillor Allen.
Yes.
Councillor Anderson.
No.
Councillor Bondi.
Yes.
Sorry, I missed that.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Sakachi.
Nope.
Councillor Crew.
Yes.
Councillor Doyle. Councillor Finn.
Yes.
Councillor Hall.
Yes.
Councillor Harrigan.
Yes.
Councillor Jubenville.
Yes.
Councillor McDonald.
Yes.
Councillor McGrail.
No.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Yes.
Councillor C. McGregor.
Yes.
Councillor Story.
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
No.
Councillor Wright.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Canna. Motion passes 14-4.
Okay, we'll move on to the next notice of motion. Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I, Councillor Anthony Sakachi, will be bringing the following motion on the June 10th meeting of council for voting discussion. Whereas Chatham-Kent is a growing community with an increasing requirement for evolving, expanding, accessible primary health care access points, and whereas the provincial government has recognized the importance of primary health care access and has taken measures to address systematic issues within the sector, including establishing Ontario health teams, funding mobile clinics in rural areas, opening additional medical training locations, and reducing the administrative burden on physicians, and recognizing that Chatham-Kent is in competition with communities across the country to attract primary health care providers and services. Be therefore resolved that administration investigate and report back on creative ways to support or incentivize the development of primary health care access points. The report should provide suggestions/recommendations for the role of the municipality and consider of incentive options with an impact to future budgets.
Okay, we'll move to communication items. Councillor Anderson and Councillor Story both pulled 4A. So, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the opportunity to form a resolution with help from the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative staff. I was able to present it at the AGM in Montreal last week, 2 weeks ago, and it was very well received. So as long as it is approved here, it will go back to the Great Lakes Cities Initiative to be passed on to upper levels of government. And I think that it aligns with what our strategic plans are and our needs as far as infrastructure and coastline resilience. I'll talk more about the actual board and initiative in non-agenda business, but I can certainly read this resolution if anybody hasn't read it, or we can just approve it. It is for coastline resiliency affected by climate-related infrastructure damage.
Councillor Story, you second that?
Happy to, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions regarding that? Anyone opposed to that motion? Motion carried.
Thank you.
And Councillor Anderson, Councillor Story, can I each move the rest of the communication items, please?
I'm happy to move that.
Happy to second.
Any questions? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Non-agenda business. Councillor Story.
I have a question for, I think, Mr. Dubin or Soldo, and also just a comment, please. So I just was hoping, I noticed we just got an email in our inbox, so that's timely. But could someone from senior administration let us know when the next report to council will be regarding the old Sears building and what we'll be reviewing? Do you have a sense of that yet, when that will be coming back to council?
Thank you, Your Worship. Right now, we're still in the concept design phase, and we're undertaking quite a bit of consultation. We do have our next meeting of the stakeholder engagement group coming up, I believe, on June 6th. Furthermore, we'll be undertaking some public consultation through the early part of the summer as well, and having our final stakeholder engagement group meeting as well. So we anticipate coming back sometime in the fall, I would say October-ish, that time frame. But that's all contingent on the input that we get and the feedback we get from the public and the stakeholder engagement group as we move forward.
And could you give us a high-level view of what we would be looking at in that report?
Thank you, Your Worship. The whole right now we're in the phase where we're actually coming up with what does the building look like, where the various amenities are situated. So an actual floor plan is something that we'll come back to council with, that's been consulted on, and we'll come back with a cost estimate as well. At that point, if council was to approve the concept plan, then we would proceed to the next phase, which would be the detailed design phase.
Great. I appreciate that. I know that we're still getting a fair bit of public input on that, so I appreciate that update. We'll look forward to that in the fall. Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, I just have just another notification that this week, May 26th to June 1st, is National Accessibility Week. And as the council rep for the Accessibility Committee, I just wanted to let everybody know that we're celebrating the valuable contributions and leadership of persons with disabilities in Canada, because we are all just temporarily able-bodied. And we're also talking about the work of allies, organizations, and communities like our community that are removing barriers volunteers and our ongoing efforts across Canada, including in Chatham-Kent, to become more accessible and disability inclusive. So I just want to thank especially the work of our Municipal Accessibility Committee. I have to say it's been a real honor to serve with them. I have learned a lot. This is a group of volunteers who gives selflessly of their time, especially to talk about accessible facilities across Chatham-Kent, and I'm so happy that I've been able to join them in that committee and the work that they're doing, including on the downtown proposal. So I really appreciate their time and efforts. And a little heads up that on the June 24th council meeting, we will be awarding the 3 accessibility awards to individuals and organizations in Chatham-Kent that are doing a great job leading on accessibility. So thank you very much.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Anderson, then to Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take the opportunity to explain a little bit about the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. It is a bi-national committee of mayors from Canada and the U.S. that advocate for and provide pressure for funding from upper levels of government to protect, preserve, strengthen, and enhance our Great Lakes and St. Lawrence water basin. Our Great Lakes hold 84% of the world's fresh water, and we have a responsibility to keep it clean and healthy for centuries to come. As a councillor, I have the opportunity and honor to proxy as the mayor on a director of that board, something that only a few mayors have the privilege to do. In total, there's 270 mayors that are members of the Great Lakes St. Lawrence currently, and the membership is growing as more and more communities see struggles of underfunding for everything from coastline resilience, water infrastructure failures due to age, and underfunding for upgrades, to water infrastructure expansion to accommodate growth in residential, commercial, industrial, and agricultural sectors, and further to certain areas within Montreal, Chicago, and Detroit that still have lead-based piping going into the residential homes. As a board, last year we recognized that we were missing a really vital voice at our table, and I'm proud to have welcomed Chief Skydeer of the Ojibwe First Nations to our board of directors. She's already taught us so much, and she's recruited another chief to be a member of the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative as well. Great Lakes Cities Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago spoke welcoming remarks to the First Nations at the city's initiative, and paid due homage to First Nations forming the actual very first infrastructure that made Chicago a success for economic development and import and export, as their very waterway trails that they formed actually were used as the infrastructure that is still there today. And I wanted to echo that sentiment to the First Nations of CK, and I look forward to much more information sharing as it allows moving forward with our Great Lakes and waterways. One of the most important details that I learned from the First Nations was that although getting their land back, water is not considered a part of the land, so they've never had a voice in the Great Lakes waterways or the basin, and have not had the ability to come to the table and see what we've actually done to our Great Lakes historically. But they quite possibly do have the solution that we need, and I'm very, very happy to see them at the table with us. And then I was honored to present that draft resolution that I've been working with the team related to coastline resilience and infrastructure. It aims to highlight the effects of erosion at our coastline and the infrastructure failures that come along with it. It directly mentions specific infrastructure issues that we have right here in Chatham-Kent and in Ward 1 with the Talbot Trail Road falling into the water and being closed. With that, I want to also thank Mayor Gary McNamara of Tecumseh and Mayor Tracy Bailey of Lakeshore for well representing Southern Ontario, and for the combined conversations that we're able to have regarding our community struggles and how we can band together to accomplish and execute the needs of our communities. The next year AGM is going to take place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I look forward to Mayor Cavalier Johnson welcoming all of us there. He also sits on the board of directors with us. And my hopes is that if our mayor cannot attend, that someone from infrastructure engineering or the PUC can attend as well. Thank you.
Councillor Doyle, followed by Councillor Scotchy.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just have two non-agenda pieces of business. One, I've gotten 3 complaints in the last 5 days, specifically for Kyle Drive south of Indian Creek with regards to their grass. I took the drive down there today. It's like a foot to 3 feet tall, almost every property. Sorry, I took a drive by down today, and most of the properties, the grass is about 1 foot to 3 feet high in the front yards. So I was wondering what if I've been asked from some of the constituents that gave me the complaints what they do in that situation when there's just a bylaw complaint. Is it just 311, or do we have them email anybody, or who would you go through for just a strictly grass cutting bylaw complaint?
Thank you, Your Worship. If it's a grass complaint within the right-of-way, I would suggest that we send it to 311. We do have a bylaw officer who can go out there and deal with the issue, but it would take some time. So
yeah, these are houses.
It's still 301, yes. We'll send it to the right person.
Okay. Or CK info? Okay, so CK info at Chatham-Kent.ca. And then how long does that normally take to be handled?
Well, through your worship, the bylaw process isn't overnight. It does take some time. There's a proper process that we need to follow. So it will take some time to go through that.
Okay, no problem. I just didn't know what to say to people who've been asked. And then secondly, so I've been asked this separate question by about 5 people over the last month. So they wanted to know, since we have set a precedent in East Kent by not having a by-election, and that this council voted on the concept of having a runner-up fill the vacancy, and we did not vote based on who that person was, can we then agree that should the situation arise in Ward 6 or any other ward, including my ward of South Kent, that the runner-up in this term, that the runner-up would take the vacancy? So in Ward 6, for instance, Carson Warner lost by 10 votes. So that means if somebody was out in Ward 6, he would then be appointed if it was this term. Is that accurate?
Judy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as we discussed at the last meeting about setting precedent for future councils, I understand that's not your question now, but we had talked about that before. Every situation is unique. And for an example, Ward 5 did not have another candidate under it. So to really restrict or set a policy, it would be different for any situation. It just depends. So if you would like a policy like that, you can put a notice of motion at the next meeting and we can look at something like that. But as we discussed at the last meeting, each situation is unique. And so it would come back, as we all know, it is a council decision, and council can pass what they've set precedent for if that's what they feel.
Okay, thank you very much. I was just confused because I just thought it was just for next council. So I just wondered for this council. So that makes sense. Thank you very much.
Councillor Scotchy, followed by Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just a point of order, I guess, to Madam Clerk. I did pull item 3A from the communication items. I know it was a little bit late. It was probably just around 5 o'clock. Is it okay to talk about it non-agenda business, or can I just move that item be passed on to the next agenda, given the time that we do have? Because it is a pretty important item.
You can speak to it now.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Probably about a month ago, we received some communication. I know a lot of council received some communication in regards to significant loss in trees in part of the municipality. And a couple of the Ward 6 councillors actually asked me about the Ridge Landfill Community Trust update in regards to what has been done with that money that we secured several years ago. So I just wanted to make sure that the community was aware that out of the $1 million that we secured, there was 48,951 trees planted. The funds that were spent were over $277,000, but they were able to leverage that funds to over $6 million in tree plantings in our community, and also restoring almost over 190 acres of wetland, prairie grass and trees. And the only comment I really wanted to do is actually just to quickly to either Mr. Dubin or to Mr. McAllister, is that we do know that in Blenheim at the business park, that there is a lot of conversations around species at risk that are actually identified in this communication. When we were speaking to the minister or the MEC, P, are we able to provide them this information to show them all the restoration that is transpiring in South Kent to help look at different, I guess, mitigations that we're looking at to address that? We might be losing something in our business park that decided to be a bird sanctuary, but we are actually doing a lot of the work through the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority, restoring lands in our community.
Thank you, Your Worship. We can certainly share that as we work through the application process with the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. Without getting into all the nuances of the species at risk, I'm not, why it's great that this has occurred. The challenge we will have is, generally speaking, whether you're a municipality or a private developer, you generally don't have access to, I'll call it sponsorships or third-party funds to offset a reduction in species at risk. But we can certainly, we'll bring it to the table, for sure.
And I just wanted to thank the partners that's established such a great regard for the environment in our community. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald, followed by Councillor McGrail.
Thanks, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted to thank former Councillor Steve Pinsno for his years of service to Ward 3 and to congratulate him on being the new MPP for Lambton-Kent Middlesex. Thank you.
Councillor McGrail, followed by Councillor Wright.
Great, thank you. Through you, Mayor Caniff. I just want to invite everyone this Saturday, June 1st, between 3 and 4, for Dresden's grand opening of their dog park, Central Bark. So come on out, bring your dog. There's a barbecue by donation, there's some dog treats, and obviously bring your dog. So thank you.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'd like to echo Marina's words for Steve. He got sworn in today, so I got to congratulate him as our new MPP for that area, and also for Marina, and I look forward to working with her in Ward 3. Congratulations for being on council.
All right, we'll go to the first and second reading. Councillor McGrail and Councillor Sakachi.
I will motion that.
Highly seconded.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Third and final reading. Councillor Harrigan and Councillor Wright.
I will move that.
I will second it. Thank you.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. We'll go to resolution of council in closed session adjournment, and we will have Councillor McDonald wrap it up after. You will be the person putting the end of this meeting today.
I move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held on Monday, June 10th, 2024, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act. I so move.
And seconded.
Anyone opposed to wrapping up the night of friendly amendments? Seeing none, it's a wrap. Thank you, everyone.